conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission for October 7th, 2020. Hope everyone's doing well. This meeting is being conducted under remote participation, so let me read the ground rules for you. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Harwich Conservation Commission on October 7, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Harwich website at www.harwich-ma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so via recording on demand on the Harwich Channel 18 website or on our Town of Harwich YouTube page. So thank you for all attending, and let me get on with the agenda. The first item is a request for a change of plan for 397 Route 28, Map 18, Parcel D1, SE 32-2424. It is a proposal to remove a foundation that was originally to remain, and as well as a progress update on the project. I think we have Mr. Handel here to represent the project.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
Would you like to give us a summary of what you would like to see happen?
I would like that, and thank you very much for allowing this this opportunity for us. So to bring the entire board and everyone else listening up to speed, we have moved along very well with the remediation process at 397 Main Street. And we are now at the point where we are going to get some final grading for the property. That will be done Saturday and Monday of next week. And then we will move right into stabilizing the coastal banks and the rest of the property for that matter. After that, Mr. Crispin from the BSC group will be filing he will submit the RAM completion statement to the state. And at that point, then we will move to the next phase. But we are looking to put some seed down very shortly along the coastal bank, up the coastal bank, and along a fair amount of the property very shortly. That is the plan for the near future.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the update. Any comments for us, Ms. Amy?
Sure. Well, just to clarify, and it's my mistake, we had a lot of back and forth before this meeting, Mr. Handler and I, and they're not removing the foundation. This is one additional building on the site, not the big one that you see from the road, but the one closest down towards the wetland. They are keeping the foundation, but they want to remove the exposed part of the building itself, if you will. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that is so you can complete the grading that you wanted to do without it kind of being in the way?
That's exactly right, Amy, and thank you. The structure is very, very old, and it's concrete wall structure with a roof that prior to even us beginning our remediation process, that roof was in rough shape. And since the grading has taken place, the building has now, with some of the grading that has gone around, the building is now beginning to fall in on itself. And I don't think it's long for it to remain standing. Mm-hmm. So our interest is for safety, for the ability to also finish the grading around that building without the risk of the machinery or anybody who's working around that building having it fall. Our interest is to remove the concrete structure and the roof, leaving the foundation that's underneath that concrete block intact, along with the foundation that is behind that existing structure up toward Route 28. And our interest is to remove it, but obviously we would like to preserve our right to rebuild on those two foundation pads.
Okay. I tried to email you when I got home today, and for some reason, even though I can access my remote desktop, my town hall email is not working. So I just wanted to let you know that, and I may have sent an email from, I can't remember how many I sent today, people. I may have sent it when I was at town hall. Just a couple of comments based on the commission site visit today. One, that the erosion control should be reinforced. There are some places where it is failing. And with that much sediment that you have that's kind of loose behind everything, we really need to make sure that that erosion control is always intact. And then the commission and I had a question about this kind of a denuded area of the marsh that if you look towards the marsh, it's to the left, so opposite of where the marsh, the remediation took place. And we were just curious about that. I'm going to try to bring it up on my screen here, a photo of it. Hang on. See if I can share that with you. And of course, just give me a minute here. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
It's giving me problems. Well, the best I can do is kind of just show you my email screen, unfortunately. But that's fine. You see my email essentially with the photo?
I do, yes.
So the kind of the blackish area past the erosion control, do you know what kind of went on there?
Amy, I'm sorry, but your cursor, I'm assuming you're talking about the southeasterly portion down by where the water garden would be?
Correct.
So yes, yeah, and thank you for the both questions. I'll back up a little bit to the silt fence if I could and just address that. We will do exactly what you want us to do with shoring up that silt fence. If you want to meet me out there tomorrow and show me exactly the spots, or if you just want Peter and I to go out and reinforce the entire length of the silt fence, comply with whatever you're looking for.
I mean, I'm happy to come out, but I think it is fairly obvious the areas that are a little faulty out there. So.
Okay. Thank you. We'll handle it, and then I'll let you know that it got done.
Perfect.
And if you want to pop out and see it, that would be fine.
Yeah, but just email if you want me to come out. I can be fairly flexible actually tomorrow. So just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you. And with respect to the southeasterly corner, the phragmites were cut and removed per our discussion prior to beginning the process. None of the coastal bank or the marsh was disturbed or dug out, as was on the right side of the property and the other side of the property.
Right.
So, you know, we did find several tires and car parts as we were digging into create that water garden drainage retention, stormwater retention area. And we plucked those out ever so carefully. But other than that being done, there was no scraping or removal of soil or anything other than the cutting of the phragmites, which I believe was exactly what we had spoken about down on the property prior to beginning.
Okay. I mean, I don't have an issue with the phragmites being cut. It is invasive. I didn't, and again, I apologize. We've been in front of us a bunch, and I should know this, but it did seem like it was outside the limit of work, but maybe the limit of work was at a double stage limit of work, that you had it out for the beginning and then you moved it in at the toe of the bank.
So are you referring to, so back to that southeast corner, the Phragmites was on the other side of the work limit line, as was all the Phragmites.
Right. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I don't have an issue with, we wanted you to remove the Phragmites, so I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
I was just, it wasn't something that when I saw it, maybe it just didn't translate. But anyway, the removal is a desired thing.
Thank you.
So with that, I mean, really we're here I just thought it was a good opportunity for Mr. Handler to bring the commission up to speed with where they're at, while asking to be able to remove this building. So I would recommend removal of the building.
All right, thank you, Amy. Let me run through questions and comments from the commissioners. I'll start with Ernie.
No, I have no comments. Well, no comments. One question. Jeff, do you have any idea yet what you're planning to do with the site?
Unfortunately, we don't. We've spent as a family countless hours, and you know, as the site is remediated and we see what we have to work with, I think we'll be able to better answer that question a couple months down the road.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, Stan?
Excuse me. Question, if you tear down the building, is the foundation going to be exposed still so that you're landscaping around the foundation? You're not burying it.
I'm sorry?
You're not going to bury or fill over the foundation. It's going to be left exposed, so the footprint of the building is still there?
The footprint of the building will be exposed in some areas. I can't answer that question, Commissioner, until we get our grade stakes out there on Monday of next week. But as it sits right now, it will be fully exposed, the slab itself.
But if you're grading, I mean, the footprint was going to be whether the building was left intact up or not, you were going to be grading around that building so that the entire foundation should be exposed. There shouldn't be no grading which covers any of it.
It's the grading up to the existing building that we're not able to fully complete with the building where it is because of the slope.
Well, I'm not clear. Originally you said, when I asked the question, you said parts of it will be exposed.
There's part of it that's exposed. When the building comes down, whatever foundation that is under that building will stay exposed until the BSC group comes out and finalizes the grading. If I may ask, is there how should we leave it exposed? Would that satisfy?
Well, the original plan was just to remediate the property, and there were no other, you know, we were talking of later phase as to what would be done with the property, and that would be that footprint of that building. So I would think that that would be open and wouldn't be graded over.
Yeah, and thank you again for the question. I don't have an answer until the BSC group comes out and grades and stakes the entire area for grading. But I can assure you it won't be 3 feet underground. If anything, there might be 6 to 8 inches over the top at worst.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a question I have left hanging then.
Understood.
Okay, Mark, any thoughts?
Yes, actually I do. Given the location of the existing building, seems to me that it would be prudent to remove all parts of it. It's going to be right on the 50-foot setback line. And if there's no new structures to be permitted, that puts it right over the line. Not to mention, I find it hard to believe there's any value to the concrete work that's there, you know, considering the changes in construction methods from then to now. I mean, that's your business. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. But it seems to me it would be prudent to remove it and utilize the area to finish the cleanup.
Thank you for your comment, Commissioner. Was that, I'm sorry, did I miss it? Was there a question there?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have a question too, if you don't mind.
No, of course, please.
Do you happen to know what the total yardage was for the material that was removed and buried on site?
I do not know that off the top. I would have to consult with the BSC group.
I'd be curious to know what that volume was and you know exactly what the procedure was there.
Procedure in terms of what we did with the material?
Yeah, exactly where it's located and how much cover is on it currently. I know what it was supposed to be covered originally in 3 feet, but I didn't know if it was at that point now, or are you still planning on bringing the grade up a little bit, do the topsoil? Where in actuality is it?
Sure, thank you for the question. At this point, that I do not have the volume for you, but that would be a pretty easy thing for me to get from David Crispin. With respect to where we are with the capping of that specific site, which got mapped out by the BSC group for completion last week, there is 3 feet of soil of dirt over the capped site as we sit today. So it has been mapped out and closed out as far as the BSC group, as far as they're concerned. It is a completed project.
If I may really quickly, just Mark, as part of the end of this, the remediation process, they will have to provide an as-built, if you will, plan or a site plan, so we can confirm that what we permitted was what was done in terms of grading. And also, we had the before volumes of what was removed. And again, that would, and Jeff's on the line, so we could say having the, after, I mean, sure, they have that data, they just haven't, put it in a, summary document yet. But having a site plan that, an existing condition site plan plus a document that states that the numbers match essentially of what was supposed to have been removed and what was, or if it was a little bit more because you found there was more contamination, I don't know. We would expect that to be in the certificate of compliance request, or certainly the kind of the after construction report, if you will.
Understood.
Thank you, Amy.
All set, Mark. Then, John, you're up.
Thank you. I have a few questions. One is just to clarify your earlier response to Amy's question about where the brown spot was, which is the Phragmites cutting was outside of the silt barrier there in the area that you're referring to, the water garden. The water garden itself, however, is inside. Where it will go is inside that silt barrier, right?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. Yes, exactly right. That is well inside the barrier.
So then you said that while you were doing this work, and I understood that to be a reference to cutting the Phragmites, you found various other things, tires and other things that needed to be removed. And that was in the area outside the silt fence?
As we were digging for the water garden down toward the lower east, southeast corner, we were unearthing material as we were going. And that material was right up against the silt fence. The silt fence was removed. The last few tires were plucked out of that area, along with a little bit of fragmented car parts. Silt fence was then put back in place.
So you don't know whether there was any other, I'll call it trash of that sort, along the rest of the limit of work there. I assume, I mean, my recollection from visiting the site there was there is a level, maybe 8-foot wide area that has been recently graded just inside the silt fence all along there. And was there any other stuff dug out along that line going west from?
Quite a bit, all along that whole line from end to end, east to west, had an unbelievable amount of debris. I'll call it debris instead of garbage. Under there, yes.
Debris. Stuff that was good stuff once.
Stuff, you're absolutely right.
But I guess what I'm curious about is whether there's still more of that stuff on the other side of the silt fence, buried under all of that. And if you're pulling it out from under the silt fence, presumably there's a lot of other garbage or stuff or whatever it is. Or is it your sense that that was sort of the end of it down there?
That would be my sense, that is the end of it there.
Okay, thank you. I guess I have another question about the slab under the building you want to take down. I'm curious to know when that slab was installed there.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And to my knowledge, 1938, right around there.
Oh, 1938. So was that before that area was in fact used for auto storage or as a junkyard?
I believe my grandfather in the early years, 1938, 39, 40, it was a metal shop. And that's where he used to bring copper and cut it. And then he would then sell it. I can't speak what happened back then. You know, I don't really know.
So when you did coring or whatever, sampling the soil, did you go through that slab at any point to see what might be under the slab?
That would be a question for the BSC group.
Because I'd be very curious whether there is any knowledge of whether the soil under there is contaminated in any way.
Again, that would be a question for the BSC group. I know that they have plotted all their points of testing, so I would have to ask Mr. Crispin that question.
It should be on the previous materials we got, which I don't have right in front of me right now, but
I do.
oh, you do.
Right there.
Well, it's going to take me a minute to find. But to get back to the other point about the salt marsh area outside the limit of work, I did find the area in your application stating that your intent was to do that. So we're good.
Thank you.
I'm going to mute myself while I flip through everything. Brad, if you want to keep going, that's fine. I'll try to locate that plan that showed the testing sites, okay?
Sure. Okay. Any more questions, John?
I'm all set. Thank you, Brad.
Okay, then we'll move on to Carolyn.
Okay. Jeff, you are asking us to approve your removal of the building and leaving the foundation.
That is correct. Thank you.
I'm confused as to why you might want to leave the foundation with 6-8 inches above grade. Why don't you want to take all of that out?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think that we don't know if it's going to be 6 or 8 inches. We don't know whether or not it's going to be exposed. So I don't want to assume, but we would like to preserve our right to build on that foundation. And we don't have to take the building down. We can leave the building where it is. We would prefer to take it down. And as I stated in my request, we would like to preserve our right to rebuild on that spot.
And what is the distance? I don't have the plans exactly in front of me. What is the distance of that building from the wetlands marker? Is it within the 50?
I believe, and Amy can verify, the 50-foot cuts the building right in half.
The building right in half. And Amy, are we required to grandfather in previous buildings, or do we have an option not to?
Well, your regulation reads that there is to be no new structure. Typically, I mean, in the past, the commission has realized that structure or has kind of come to some agreement that if a structure was in place prior to the Wetlands Protection Act, which was in 1978, that if that footprint potentially not to be any closer to the marsh and not to be expanded upon if it was within the 50, but that footprint could potentially be used again, whereas a new structure, just because a structure structure's there predating the Wetlands Protection Act. And that's how the commission in other cases has gone. Is it guaranteed? There's really no guarantee, but I think, Mr. Handler can say yes or no, but you're hoping to preserve some right to use that area. So
that is correct.
So
yes, the 50-foot buffer does bisect that building.
So we are not absolutely required to honor a grandfathered in.
So you're not being asked to vote right now on what could be there. You're just being asked to, I would cross that bridge, honestly, when we get to it.
Well, my question on that is that if the commission down the road does not want a building a new structure in the 50-foot, that leaves them with an unsightly 6-8 or whatever inch foundation sitting there, right?
Because I don't really want to talk about what could or may not be there in the future. This is kind of a broader discussion to just the Handler property and could have implications for other properties as well. But the general consensus in the past is the commission has generally allowed some rebuilding on existing footprint of structures that had predated the act. And I think that's as far as I'm going to go with that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thank you, Carolyn. Amy, do you want to come back to John's question, or?
I don't have, I apologize. I have a condensed version of your folder with me here, Jeff. I have the RAM plans, but I don't have that plan that shows the location of the testing. But that's certainly something either BSC group can provide, or if it's easier, I'm happy to provide. And if tomorrow, but I mean, that's as far as where we're at tonight. mean, you're not asking to remove the foundation. I would think that if you were going to do any dirt moving in the future, then you would certainly, if it wasn't tested, you would want that area to be tested. So.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay, well, a lot of good questions, and I think we'll be talking about this site before too long. But tonight, I think we're being asked to move on a request for a change in plan. So I'd like to ask if one of the commissioners would like to make a motion in this regard.
Brad, can I ask one question?
Please.
I'm just curious. Jeff wants to protect that right, and we've had discussions. Carol, I know you brought up whether that's required to do it. My question, Amy, is this: does that foundation need to physically be there to show that there's previously has been there, or could you mark that some other way to allow more options on the foundation and protect the right if that's what it is?
So we don't have a golden rule of time frame in our regulations with how long a building can be gone and still be considered having been there. So, I mean, I think it's the applicant potentially runs more of a risk of completely removing it, even to just come 6 months down the road and ask to rebuild in that spot. Short answer, Larry, is that we just don't have a regulation stating, about anything about, we don't really grandfather, but there is, meaning we don't grandfather when something is gone necessarily. It's harder to do that. So maybe that's something that we should work on.
Thank you. Just curious.
Excuse me, Brad.
Yeah, and I should ask, go ahead, Stan.
And I guess I just want to kind of go along with that whole thing, and for Mr. Handler's benefit, that's why I was questioning before whether the potential foundation was being covered or not. Does that, in effect, cause it to not exist, even though it physically is there, but it's now no longer exposed? And I mean, I guess we don't have an answer right now, but that's kind of where I was leading before with my question as to, does it need to be out or not?
Thank you. Was that a question for me, Commissioner, or for Amy?
No, it's just my comment as to why I originally was questioning if it were to be exposed or not. If it were graded over, does that in effect cause it to disappear?
Understood.
Foundation.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, our regulation, we don't really have regulations that deal with that. So it's going to be the interpretation of the commissioners. So
just to add, Amy, and the commissioners and everybody, it's not that we're not completely uncomfortable with leaving it right the way it is, if that's the way it needs to be, until we figure out what we want to do with the property. My interest is an interest of safety and an interest of us being able to grade the rest of the property around it safely and effectively and efficiently. But, we've worked since July 10th with that building in place, and it can certainly remain in place, maybe until the commission has a formal regulation surrounding this kind of thing, or we come to some kind of agreement.
Yeah, I think, we've discussed this topic. The proponent would like to leave the foundation. I don't see a problem, honestly, with them coming back later and deciding if they want to remove it or not. So I don't have a problem with that. I should ask if there's any additional questions from members of the audience. Okay, seeing none, any further comments or questions from commissioners? All right, would a commissioner like to make a motion on this request for a change in plan?
I'll
Wait, hold on a second. Oh, I'm sorry, Carol, to interrupt you, but did I call on Jim? I think,
No, I'm here. I've got
I'm
no
sorry, Jim.
problem.
Yeah, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I've got no problem with removing the buildings, so.
Okay,
That's all.
sorry about that, Jim. There's a lot of folks on tonight, and I missed you. All right, Carolyn, sorry to interrupt. If you want to go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for change in plan for 397 Route 28 to remove the building and leave the foundation.
Could I have a second, please? All right, thank you. All right, thanks, Ernie. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right,
Aye.
seeing none, the motion.
No.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, it has come to to my notice that we really should be doing roll call votes because
Okay.
of, so you'll have to say your name and then aye or nay. Just because of the virtual meeting, it's really hard to hear if everybody agrees or not.
Yep, no, I understand. I've just tried to expedite things when I can, so.
Yeah. No, I think
okay,
we got to do that now.
All right, so let me think of a process here. So I'm going to call for a positive vote, and you want me to call everyone's name out?
Well, you can if you like. So we had Carolyn moved and Ernie seconded to approve. So yeah, you can.
Okay, then I'm going to go
yes,
with.
That would be good. Go by their names
Yeah.
and they can say aye or nay.
Okay, and I'll go in the order that I see people on the frame here. So,
Sure.
Ernie,
Aye.
Stan,
Aye.
Mark,
Nay.
okay, John,
Aye.
okay, Carolyn,
Aye.
and then Jim,
Aye.
and then myself, Brad Chase, aye. So we have, the motion carries with one dissent.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have one of the more interesting addresses in town, Nantucket Sound, SE 32-2346. This is the Kelp Project. They would like to keep the gear in the water longer, and I think there's a modification related to sea scallops as well. Mr. Kelleher, you are on the line to present the project? Mark Kelleher, are you available?
I see his name. If you're on a phone, Mark, you have to hit *6 in order to be heard, or click on your name to unmute yourself on the screen.
Well, I guess we can come back. Is that the best idea, Amy? Or, and it's a simple change.
It is.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are.
Here we go.
Can you hear me?
Mark. Yep, we got you now, Mark. If you want to briefly describe your project, please.
Okay, I'll be very brief. I have a kelp line out off of Pleasant Street Beach. I've had it for 2 years. This year, what I'd like to do is add 5 lantern bags of bay scallops, about 25 feet of line. And my petition is to keep, normally I remove the kelp lines May 15th. My petition is to keep that 25 feet of line in the water, 2 buoys at either end, 8 feet below the surface, until the following November this is basically the test to see how well bay scallops will grow in formerly an area that did have bay scallops. I've spoken to Heinz Proft. He's on board with this. I will probably donate some of the, I can't use any of it for resale, but I'll probably donate some of it to the town to seed Herring River. So my petition is to extend the kelp line, only 25 feet of it, past the May 15th date until the following November.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any comments on this one for us, Sammy?
Hold on one second. No, I was just, for some reason, I was getting really confused about the dates. So you're saying they would be, I mean, just only 5 scallop bags on a section of line that's only 25 feet long, Mark?
Correct.
Okay, would stay in the water until November 1st, which is what I did say. Okay, that's not a problem. All right, I mean, that's from I would recommend approving of that, sorry. I'm just gonna go back, I'm reading through your order of conditions really quick. And did you send me, I think you did, and I will send it to the commissioners, your annual report last year for how everything went? I remember you putting something together just saying, unfortunately, that the kelp didn't grow as much as you wanted to. I just wanted to take this opportunity to get a little update from you.
Yeah, the kelp, normally the kelp in ideal conditions can grow 6 to 8 feet long. I only had about 3 feet of growth last year. For one line, no, 2 lines of 200 feet, I had about a 300 or 400 pound yield, and I had no market for it because of the COVID. So it hasn't reached the potential that I would like to see. I do get growth. It's just not to the extent that would make it a success long term.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Amy?
Yes, it does. And I know you sent it to me. I remember getting it, but your annual report that you submitted to DMF, I know you gave me a copy as well last year. We would be looking for it again this year.
Okay.
But no, I have no questions. And this is a fairly minor change. The reason I brought it to you is because the order of conditions specifically said your gear can only stay in from October 1st to May 15th. So I would recommend you letting him change that a 25-foot section of his gear can remain in until November 1st, 2021 for 5 scallop bags.
All right, thank you, Amy. All right, comments and questions from commissioners, starting with Ernie.
Yeah, Mark, are there any changes that you think you can make to encourage the growth of the kelp?
I don't think so. I think there's just not that much in terms of nutrients out there. Woods Hole Oceanographic has also experienced the same thing in Buzzards Bay and things like that. I moved it a little bit last year to try and get some of the outflow from Herring River, but I haven't seen anything to indicate that I could really juice the growth quite a bit.
Okay, it's unfortunate. It's too bad. I was optimistic that you'd be able to make this a viable practice, but that's sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try again this year. Just see, maybe it'll be better this year. We'll see.
Yeah, good. So my only question is with respect to the leaving the additional long line in. Has Hines signed off on? Not Hines. I'm sorry. John Rendon signed off on this from a navigation perspective. You're going to have floats up there on the surface, right?
Right. I've met with John. The Waterways Committee was scheduled 2 weeks ago. They didn't have a quorum. 2 weeks from now, I'll be in front of the Waterways Committee on this.
All right. So is our vote contingent on their approving that?
I would say they really have to do with navigation. So, and we typically do, so they're meeting the same night that we are, correct? The 21st is our next meeting, and I think they meet the same night.
We'll ask you, Amy.
Correct. Yes, the 21st.
I guess I don't have an answer then.
Yeah, Mark, we typically do wait till after Waterways has weighed in on this and before we vote. So I could try, we could put you on the next meeting. That's the same night as Waterways. mean, I don't know if you, how the commission feels because this is such a small thing. It's only 25 feet of line. How the commission would feel if we tried to get him on early, maybe in the waterways agenda and us later on our agenda. That way, and he could let us know how things went there, or we could put it on. I wouldn't want to see it have to go to November 4th. Is such a small thing, it seems.
So we can't do a condition. I'm sorry, Brad, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Ernie. I was going to ask Mark, when does he want to acquire seed for the base scallops?
I already have wild seed over from ARC already. They've got some wild seed already that they've got in their tanks right now that I'm going to use.
Yeah. Well, here's my feeling, Amy, is that, you know, we approved the existing location as well as waterways in the harbor master. And so nothing's changing there in that regard. And I just worry about having you might have another quorum issue next month.
True.
So to me, it's a very minor modification, and I favor moving on it tonight.
All right.
And, you know, if the harbor master had a real problem with this, he could certainly, independently of the Conservation Commission, make a determination on its location. So that's my thought. Is I worry. You know, there's so many committees that just, you know, things are up in the air right now, and I'd worry about multiple lack of quorums.
Oh, I understand. I did speak with John, and he said, unfortunately, like 2 people, I think, have left waterways, so they're going to be having some issues. And I mean, you are the regulatory body. We don't want to step on any toes, but on the other hand, you don't want to leave Mr. Kelleher high and dry either. So.
Yeah. So, well, I guess folks can comment on this concept as they come up. Their turn comes up as well. So, Ernie, you're all set. How about you, Stan?
Going along with that, when do you need to put that in the water? At what date?
Kelp comes available in mid-November to mid-December, so I'll probably put the scallops in around that time as well. Maybe even earlier. If I can get my gear in, I can put the scallops in even earlier and then wait for the kelp to come in.
Okay. No, I have no problem doing. I was just thinking, can we make it contingent upon the waterways, or, well, like you say, if they're going to potentially be having a quorum issue, I don't have any problem going ahead this way.
All right, thank you, Mark.
I would support this as well. That's all.
Okay, John.
Yeah, I support this. I'm just curious. I believe when you first came before us 2 years ago, you mentioned that there were similar kelp growing attempts outside of Stage Harbor, and I'm wondering what you know about their success, whether they're doing better or worse than you've been doing.
They're a lot larger than I am. Their growth is a little bit better than mine. I think perhaps because they get an inflow from the Atlantic Ocean from the cut, but it's still, you know, in the 2 to 4 foot range where that's my range as well in terms of growth.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Carolyn.
I don't think I can approve this. In fact, I know I can't approve this without an opinion coming from the harbor master. I respectfully disagree with Brad, and I think a lot does change whether or not you have a line of whatever you would nets in Nantucket Sound during the recreational boating season. What we approved for the kelp was taking them out May 15th, I believe. So didn't interfere with navigation at all. But this could get entangled in boating. And my question also is he going to have, I don't know what they're called exactly, but the metal parts that would on the markers that would allow radar in the fog to detect where the nets are?
Yes, I have radar reflectors on either end. And
On
the
either
line,
end.
on either end of the line, I'm only going to put one line in, so I have a radar reflector on either end. And the kelp line is 7 to 8 feet below the surface. So generally speaking, there's no interference. Most boats in this area do not take up that deep of water. And the only other thing I would add is if John does have a problem, you know, I can still take the gear out come May 15th if that's the case.
Okay, well, as I said, I don't think I can vote on this without an opinion from John Rendon.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. No other comments.
Okay. Well, it sounds like, Mark, that you're okay if you have to wait until the next opportunity to have Waterways hear this to get your seat in. That's not going to hamper your operation if you wait?
No, if the next Waterways meeting is the 21st, no, that won't hinder me. I mean, I'll still be gearing up for the kelp in any case, but no, that if I can get an answer, you know, in that area of late October to early November, I should be okay.
Okay. Well, then, you know, seeing Commissioner O'Leary's concerns, in you know, legitimate concerns on this, I think we should wait and hear what Waterways has to say. I would just caution if they have another lack of quorum. I do view this as a very minor modification, so I think that I would like to see us go forward if they don't have a quorum a second time. So, but so I'll move that we continue. What's the date, Amy?
Well, October 21st, but it's the same date as Waterways. The meeting after that is November 4th.
All right, so Waterways meets at 6:30 as well?
6.
6.
Oh, 6. Well, can we put them on at 7:30 and, you know?
Well, I can put them at the end of our agenda if you're comfortable with that, and I can have Brendo and send me an email or something to let me know if you approved it.
Let's try that. It's only 2 weeks out. And I did forget to ask any comments from members of the audience. Okay, it's an interesting project. We would like to see success. And even just to learn from the process, I think is valuable for everybody. So, okay, well, then I'm going to move that we continue the request for modifying the Kelp Project in Nantucket Sound, SE 32-2346, until our next meeting, October 21st.
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Carolyn. And I'm going to go through a roll call, starting with Ernie.
Aye.
Okay, Stan.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Okay, John.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Myself, Brad. Aye. So it is unanimous. We will continue to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commission. All right.
Okay, moving down the agenda, we next have a request for determination of applicability for 1 Mill Point Road, map 1, parcel J1-112, a proposal to demolish an existing single-family dwelling with pool, patio, and construct, well, a new pool and patio constructed. Is there a representative here tonight?
There is. Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering Consulting.
Good evening.
You ready for my spiel?
Yes, please.
So we have a fairly straightforward project here. We have a house, a structure that is kind of past its life cycle. So we're proposing to demolish and rebuild the existing, kind of relatively in the existing same area on the northern side of this property. So we'll be reconstructing with a new house, pool, cabana, and all associated appurtenances. Presently, the proposed work is about over 150 feet from the riverfront. The site has a road and a house between the locust property and the riverfront. We'll be utilizing a silt fence work limit to protect any temporary construction impacts. But that's, although there is an environmental benefit to that, it's mostly to keep any debris from migrating into the road and affecting the neighborhood. Additionally, a previously developed riverfront area contains areas degraded prior to August 7th, 1996. This property was developed in about 1960, or at least in 1962, definitely beforehand, by Impervious Services. Due to their reduction in hardscape in the riverfront buffer area, redevelopment prior to 1996, and development between this project and the river, we believe this meets the requirements outlined in the section of 310 CMR 10.585, redevelopment within the previously developed riverfront areas of the Wetlands Protection Act. It's a fairly straightforward project. I'm sure you guys see a lot of these in town. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you have any summary comments for us?
Sure. Just to let everybody know, in case I cut out, I'm having issues with my audio. And actually, I had the power flick here a little bit. Seems to be coming through pretty good over here. But the only resource is riverfront area. They're outside the 100-foot buffer from the coastal bank. This is in the outer riparian, which is the 100 to 200-foot riverfront area. The new home would be farther from the river than existing, but still partially within. There would be 639 square feet less of hardscape in the area, in the riverfront area. And as Chuck had stated, this qualifies, in my opinion, as redevelopment under that section, the applicable section of the Wetlands Protection Act. The whole property is pretty much all lawn with the exception of a hedge. So there really is no native vegetation even that's coming out in order to do any of this work. I would suggest that you condition, as you typically do, that no chemical application, including fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, can occur within the riverfront area, and that any lawn within the riverfront area be made of a Cape Cod grass seed mix. I would recommend approval with a -2 determination because it technically is in a resource area, being riverfront, but it would not have an adverse impact to that resource. And just as a, not having to do with conservation, but just making sure you've gone through all the proper channels here, this house was built in 1850, so that puts it on the historic list. And I just want to make sure anything over 100 years old, regardless if it's in a historic district or not, which this isn't, if it's over 100 years old, which this house is, has to be approved by historic to come down. You may have already done that, gone through that route, huh?
Yeah, it was brought up to the contractor, and it's on his court. He told me it was all set, so okay. I have to take him at his word.
It has nothing to do with us, but I just wanted to put that out Great. There. And we'll see that anyway. I see your building permit applications come through, so we'll make sure everything is as it should be.
Amy?
Yes?
Can you hear me okay? It's Rob McPhee.
Oh, hi, Rob.
How are you? Just wanted to chime in real quick and let you know that we did do our due diligence and looked into that, and that was a question that was raised, and the house is actually not listed in the town on the historical list.
Oh.
And we've been through the process, and the demo permit has been issued.
Okay.
Just to make sure everyone's aware.
That works for me. I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So yes, I would recommend approval with a -2 determination, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you, Amy. All right, comments and questions from the commissioners. I'll start with you, Ernie.
Yeah, I'm I'm looking at the plans. I'm really struggling with whether or not the lot coverage calculations here are accurate or not. Just looking at the driveway itself, you have an existing drive, which is not that, well, perhaps it is, because there's a turnaround there as well.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's being eliminated also.
Yep.
Okay. All right. It just looked like the structure, the difference between the structure, just looking at the proposed garage versus the front of the house that's coming out and the proposed garage that's going in, it's a whole lot larger in size than is there now. But I guess that's covered because you're an extra 250 or so square feet over what the existing coverage is right now. So yeah, I'm fine then. I think everything looks all right. I have no other questions. Thank you.
I think that's a really valid point because I actually had to double and triple check my numbers because I had the same reaction. But I'd be happy to look over it again for you as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. All right, Stan?
No questions.
Mark?
No questions at all.
Okay, John, you're next.
Yeah, I have no questions or comments.
Okay, Carolyn?
No questions.
All right, Jim?
Yeah, I agree with Amy's comments about the fertilizer and herbicide conditions, and other than that, I'm all set on this one.
Okay. Any comments from members of the audience? All right, seeing none, I'd like to ask for a motion from the commissioner.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for a determination of applicability for 1 Mill Point Road with a -2 determination.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mark, with the condition of the no chemical applications, standard
Yes.
language. Okay, then I'll go through a roll call, starting with Ernie.
I'm in favor. That's fine.
All right, Stan.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
And Jim?
Aye.
And myself, Brad? Aye. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, next we have a request for determination of applicability for 20 Bishop's Lane, map 40, parcel N5-0. They're looking for a wetlands boundary delineation. Do we have a project representative here tonight? Is somebody here to represent 20 Bishop's Lane?
I think this is Mike Ball from MME. I think Brad Mallow is just going to unmute himself. He was going to, I believe he's a representative on this project.
Okay.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is Brad Mallow, Coastal Engineering. Thank you. That was Mike Ball of Marsh Matters, who was our wetlands consultant on this project, and Tom Nicholas, the owner and applicant, is also on the call with us this evening. We, on behalf of Mr. Nicholas, we filed and we completed an existing conditions survey of the property and had Mike Ball do a wetlands determination and delineation for us. The existing conditions plan shows that we have a bordering vegetated wetland to the north of the existing developed lot. It's north of the house. The backyard, if you've had an opportunity to, and I understand a number of you, if not all of you, have had a chance to view the site today. So the general area of the backyard is mostly grass, and then there's some thicker vegetation along the northerly property line. The grade drops about 3 to 5 feet from the back of the house to about the edge of the clearing. And then it drops another 3 to 6 feet between the edge of the clearing and the top of the bank at the edge of the ditch and the overgrown bog, which generally tracks along the line of the delineation that we have represented on the plan for the wetland boundary. The overgrown bog itself, call it the floor of the bog, is about 2.5 to 3 feet down from the top of the bank. So what we're looking for is the determination by the commission to confirm the wetland boundary. And then from that, we'll be able to work with the applicant to see what, if any, opportunity he has to make some modifications to the house along the backyard. But first things first, we wanted to get this in front of the commission to get a confirmation so that we know what we're dealing with. And if you have any questions, and I know that Amy had forwarded me some comments and some questions. As I said, Mike Ball is here and can address anything in specifics related to the delineation.
All right, thank you both. Amy, summary thoughts for us?
Yeah, I apologize, Mike. I didn't have your email and I couldn't find it, so I had to send Brad everything and then ask him to send it to you. But maybe you could send me an email so I could have yours in the future. Some of my comments. So this is the wetland itself is an old cranberry bog that's in the back, and the bordering vegetated wetland that they flagged is the edge of the ditch. I had a couple of questions and comments. One, which was a couple of days ago, basically, how does this declared drought that we're in, impact any stream flow that we have there? And I was thinking this is not the main channel of what used to be the old bog. This is the outer channel. So it may it's really more for our edification, I think. But I wouldn't believe that it would be a perennial stream on the outer edge anyways. But I am curious about how the drought has impacted that. I mean, it's pretty clear when you're out there that the water level's a lot farther down. There's nothing in the ditches at all. But more so, my questions were, when I had time to we spent some time out there today, immediately landward of the BVW is the top of the bank along the BVW, if you will. It's a little bit higher because of spoils from the bog that have been tossed over by the years. And then it does tend to taper, or looks to go down a little bit. Not as low as the surface of the bog on the other side of the ditch. But I was hoping Michael could go through his wetland delineation a little bit better. I wondered where your test sites exactly were as per the plan. And things like that, because we did note landward of the BVW, at least I would say close to 50% of vegetation that it was either wet or could be either or. We call that facultative or facultative wet. And then I didn't dig out there, but again, digging during a drought isn't going to find your water anyways, but it will show you soil type. So I was hoping you could go over soil type out there as well, because I do question whether or not that wetland potentially is a little bit farther landward, just due to the conditions that I saw out there today.
Sure. Thanks, Amy. And I appreciate your time going out there to take a look. As you know, the Cape historically has been farmed for blueberries, cranberries over decades, if not a couple of centuries, it seems. And so I, as a wetland scientist who've been working on the Cape since, 1995, I see a lot of these areas that clearly are wet, but they are wetland areas that have been altered significantly. And the alteration is in the form of ditching. If you're familiar with what a ditch will do to a wetland area, it effectively drains it. And what farmers would do whether they wanted to farm the area or just control the water level to reduce any standing water, say, you know, to attenuate standing water that might create mosquito populations or mosquito breeding habitat. So you find these areas that are just crisscrossed with ditches, and you don't really know if back decades and decades and decades ago, if the person who created these ditches or the people who created these ditches were doing it because they wanted to create a cranberry farm, or if they wanted to just control the water levels to reduce ponding water. So this is one of those situations where you've got a wetland. At one time, it was a cedar swamp. It was an Atlantic white cedar swamp because there are old Atlantic white cedars in that swamp. And what the ditches have done, I believe, is helped reduce the amount of water that stands in that area. So, as Amy mentioned, you've got areas that clearly hold water in those ditches, and there is evidence that water sits in those ditches at a certain elevation. You can see the evidence of that water in the form of partially decayed leaves. It's all black. You can tell where the seasonal high water table will sit. So as a wetland scientist, I've got to look at adjacent areas to the wetland and say, all right, I've got a groundwater elevation that's showing itself in these ditches. How does that groundwater elevation, how is that elevation related to an adjacent area of higher elevation? How does that groundwater elevation relate to the root system in those upland areas, right? So that's a very important question, because if that groundwater reaches up into the upper 12 to 16 inches of that adjacent area, you start getting wetland vegetation, because it creates, you know, a deficit of oxygen, and that's where you get the wetland plants. So I look at a lot of things as a wetland scientist. I look at, like as I discussed, past alteration. I look at topography. I look at plant communities. I'm a botanist, so I'm fairly good at plant recognition. And then I take all these indicators, I assess them. If I'm not convinced that the vegetation is telling me where the wetland boundary is, if it's not clear, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, you must go look for hydrologic indicators. And the best indicators are either water at or near the surface, right? Or you're looking in the soil for morphologies that tell you where that seasonal high groundwater elevation is. So that's when you start digging. Often we're using soil augers, which are a small tool to look at soil, sometimes a shovel. And so the focus of my effort was in those areas just landward of that ditch and of that berm. I agree. There was some red maple, there was some tupelo landward of the line that I ultimately set. But you got to remember, red maple and tupelo, while they are dominant in wetland areas, they're facultative, which means that by definition, they occur 50% of the time in upland areas, they occur 50% of the time in wetland areas. So when you have an area that's got a lot of facultative vegetation, you have to look at the soils. And so that's what I did. My BW data forms, if you're looking at them in the upper right corner of the soil side, I've got a sketch of the wetland flags, and then kind of a location of where my soil observations were in both the wetland and upland. So based on my observations in that area landward of the ditch, I didn't believe, based on what I was seeing in the soils, that there was evidence of wetland hydrology, so much so that it would cause me to say, oh yeah, this is an area of wetland where we have a seasonal groundwater table close to the surface within the root zone. Okay, I think my soil hole went down in the upland to about 30 inches. Now, yes, we're in a drought, but what's great about soils is soil morphologies don't care whether there's water in the soil or not. Water leaves evidence of its presence in the soil, right? By redoxomorphic features. So you're looking for models, you're looking for oxidized root zones, all kinds of crazy things. And so that's kind of what I did. I looked in that upland area in a couple of locations to see if the plants that were there were reflective of what I was seeing in the soils. And I just didn't see that particular area that I'm questioning as a wetland. I was seeing it as an upland. And what further supported that was the presence of plants such as, the pitch pines, the tree oaks. You've got white oak, black oak, scarlet oak. You've got black cherry. So when I see all of these facultative upland and upland species mixing in with the facultative species, the tupelo, the red maple, I kind of have to weigh all that with the soils morphologies that I'm observing and then make a call. Do I call this area wetland? Do I call this area upland? Given how low that wetland is in elevation, I think Brad mentioned it drops about two feet, maybe even 30 inches down to that ditch. I just don't see the opportunity for that groundwater to hop up essentially in that upland area to create a wetland. So I think that the top of that ditch is based in my professional opinion, the appropriate location for the wetland boundary. I just don't see it going any further landward. And I think, I apologize for going on long about this, but these ditches do have that effect of effectively draining an area. It makes it so much easier when you have these linear ditches that are connected. So when any water does accumulate, when the groundwater comes up and saturates, right, these ditches are effective at moving that water, in this case, moving it to the north and ultimately moving it under the road to the wetland further to the north. I don't think we're dealing with a perennial stream here. The USGS topo map doesn't show a solid blue line. I did size that culvert under the road. It's just, we're not in a situation where we have a perennial waterway. These are just man-made ditches that are draining this wetland. It's a nice wetland. It's full of poison ivy, which is fine, but it's full of a lot of great native shrubs. But I think once you get above that perimeter ditch, once you get above that bank, it goes right into upland habitat. And I'm hoping that my wetland report provided an adequate description of my observations.
Thank you. That was actually just what I was kind of hoping to hear from you in terms of description. That was a good description. So as I told the commission on the site, for a wetland to be a wetland, you need 2 out of the 3 things. You need the predominance of wetland vegetation, you need hydric soils, and you need water. Well, we clearly didn't have water. And if you're obviously in the ditches, you're having the hydric soils and you're just not seeing that up above, then you really don't have those 3 indicators. Because even as you said, during times of drought, the soils hold the history for a lot longer. So just because it's a dry year, you would still see those indicators. So I don't have any questions after that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Amy. All right, well, let's start with comments and questions from commissioners. Ernie?
Yeah, question for you. The data that you provided to us, you have these 4 pages of Appendix Gs. 2 of them are labeled wetland, 2 are labeled upland, and I couldn't identify the geographic location for each of these. Is the ditch the boundary and the upland is south of the ditch?
Yeah, so on Appendix G on the second side, which is the soil side, they ask for you to sketch in a location of the plot. So I try to make these very simple. And so what I show is a ditch. I show my flags. I show a UPL, which is upland, on one side of that boundary line, and then wet for wetland on the other side. So, and then I show where that transect for both vegetation and soils was done. And in this case, it looks like I did it at BBW 4, flag 4. So,
I think I understand. So on your location of the plot, you have an S with a circle around. Is that south
That's soil pit. I'm sorry. So when I have a S with a soil, that's kind of a standard symbol for where you looked at your soils, a circle with an S in it. I'm sorry. But yeah, and they like to know, they like you to record how many feet from your boundary line the soils were observed. So on the upland soil side, you see that I've got a soil pit, or my observations were made roughly 8 feet landward of flag BVW 4. And so you'll see that. On the wetland side, you'll see that my soil observation was 15 feet roughly on the wetland side of BVW 4.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Why 8 feet?
It just happened to be the spot I chose. I mean, 8 feet's pretty close to a wetland boundary. I mean, if I was reviewing, I do third-party reviews of other people's wetland boundaries, and if I saw someone that showed their upland plot, say 30 feet landward of a wetland boundary, that would be a red flag for me. So when I review someone's boundary, I like to see those soil observations done with like roughly within 10 feet, just to give a more accurate representation of site conditions. So there's no standard distance from a wetland that you should do your soil pit, but generally Army Corps, if you look at the Army Corps standards, they want you to do it as closely as possible to the wetland boundary. So basically your soils, you're getting closer and closer and closer, and then you're pinning down your wetland boundary based on the closest soils observations, right? In addition to the plants. So I think in this case, I was pretty close to the boundary on both sides.
Okay. At 8 feet, I'm looking at the 50 and 60 foot limits that are on one of the other maps that we have here. 8 feet can make a world of difference, I think, with respect to the encroachment on the property for this particular lot. I'm
sorry, if I could add, you also want to do a soil observation in an area that's relatively undisturbed. And as Amy mentioned, when you go out there, you see that you do have a ditch with a berm. And so years ago, when they were mucking out this ditch, they probably just dumped those materials right on the edge of the well that forms that tiny little berm. It's not much, but it's a little bit of a berm. And so if you were to dig with your auger in that berm itself, right, it would be a mixture of disturbed soil. So we don't want to be going 1 foot from the boundary. You want to kind of get a little bit further away, so you're outside of that alteration area, because you want to see what the natural, if there is a natural soil profile, you want to try to pick a spot that's going to give you a good indication of where that groundwater is. You don't want to see evidence of, like, you don't want your soil pit to be in an area where you might have fill or other disturbance, which would make it much more difficult to determine where that seasonal high groundwater table is. So I tried to be as close as I could to that wetland boundary, but at the same time trying to find a relatively natural, I hate that word natural, but find an undisturbed soil morphology, so that it would give me a better idea of where that groundwater elevation is. In the wetlands, because that area is so flat, I could have been 50 feet away and I would have seen the same thing that I saw 15 feet. In uplands, a little bit different because it slopes up a little bit. In the upland, you want your soil pit to be a little bit closer, as close as possible to that BVW line. I think I've achieved that.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I have no other questions.
Okay, Stan.
I have no questions.
All right, thanks. Mark?
Nope, I have no questions at all.
All right, thank you. John?
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn?
No questions.
Okay. Jim?
No further questions.
Okay. All right. Any comments from members of the audience?
Sure.
All right, sorry, and I think you did receive one comment.
Yeah, I got an email that I forwarded to you today that they wanted to be left anonymous. Hang on one second, if I can kind of just go over the sentiments of the email. I think some of it had to do kind of what we've been talking about is the seasonality of the water. The other points, I just want to make sure that, well, we told this individual that this is really for this one property and not for this entire wetland that we had. Let me just try to find this here. Excuse me. Okay. So again, they just wanted to reiterate, you know, that we're working in a drought situation. And I think we covered that because, as you stated, regardless of drought, the soils don't change quick and plants don't change quick. And those are our two indicators for this site. And let's see. The person had said, based on monitoring data and USGS sites, they believe there might be a perched local water table in the area. So this is based on the need to add a second sump pump in my opposite basement perimeter. Careful measured water level observations made in these two holes in conjunction, and saying that there's major seasonal fluctuation in the regional water table. Again, any changes or adjustments to a wetland boundary should be considered in a year with normal precipitation. And again, we were really talking about that this wetland is not really being defined by this season's or this year's water table. It's historic water tables. And they didn't want a precedent being set related to this action, possible subsequent changes, sorry, trying to scroll, to other properties, to local abutting property boundaries and access. So I just said I would relay that, sorry. And if you have any questions, let me know. I can answer.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Yeah, I just got that just before the meeting. I don't know, any additional comments from the commissioners in that regard? All right. Well, I think we can move ahead and entertain a motion for this.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed wetland boundary delineation at 20 Bishop's Lane.
Could I have a second, please?
I'll second it. It's Stan.
Seconded by Stan. And then we'll go through a roll call, starting with Ernie.
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And myself, Brad? Aye. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a notice of intent for 47 North Road, map 19, parcel S2, a proposal to install sheet pile and a dead man to reinforce an existing timber bulkhead. Do we have a representative here?
Yes, we do. This is Thomas Smith. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm representing myself on this, and my main purpose for being here tonight is to repair the bulkhead in front of the property, which is now a wooden structure. I think most of you have seen it. The wooden structure seems okay. The piles are fine, but between the boards on the actual wall itself, there's gaps, which is causing the sand and what's behind it to actually flow out of it. And what my proposal is to put vinyl planking behind the actual bulkhead and tie it all together from end to end to keep that from happening. I think that basically describes it, Amy. What are your thoughts on that? Is there anything I need to add or?
Just a little bit of methodology, size of sheets, things that we talked about on the phone, but the commissioners haven't heard, you know, how you're going to go about doing it, who's proposed to do the work, things like that.
Okay.
For the dead men, if you need fasteners, we talked about that, whether or not you're going to need dead men anchors in back there or not, things like that.
Right. Yeah. What my plan is to try and do this myself. And the method I'd use would be to use a mini excavator, come in there and clean up the debris that's behind the wall there now. Most of you have seen it, I guess, as blocks, as trees, as a bunch of stuff that is kind of either fallen in or fallen below the deck. And I will remove that, and then I will take these vinyl planks and go down as far as I can into the soil. They're 16 feet in length. I don't think I'm going to be going down that far, and a lot of it depends on what you hit at the time you're doing the work. So if you hit something after you're down 6 or 8 feet, it should be sufficient to hold that whole thing together and not be an issue, as long as you're under the soils below the depth of the water, which I'm hoping to be at least 6 feet. And they'll be probably deeper on the, if you're looking at the water, they're deeper on the right-hand corner of this bulkhead, just because of the way the river runs through there. That's an area that gets pulled more than the left or the right. So they'd be deeper there. And then as I move left, there'd be, I'm hoping 6 or 8 feet down, and that would be it. And the same on the right-hand side, just because you don't have that same pull from the river.
Okay.
And I would be jetting them down with the water and a little pressure from the mini excavator, unless I don't need it. If I don't need it, I'll just jet them down with the water. That basically describes it.
All right, thank you. Any additional comments for us, Amy?
Yep. So we do not have a file number for DEP yet, from DEP yet. And Tom, what that means is we can't vote on this tonight until DEP issues a file number for you. I just checked now because sometimes they come in at the end of the day. I just checked on their database now and they still have not issued you a file number yet, unfortunately. But that being said, I want to let the commissioners know and let you know that, you know, let's talk about this and vet any questions or issues, but we won't be able to vote on this tonight. So let's see, let's go back here. So I think this came to you because we originally approved some handwork and some filter fabric being put behind there. Once Mr. Smith got the decking off and looked back and behind there, he found that this really needs more work than that, and that's why we're here. So there is a Chapter 91 license for the existing bulkhead. These new vinyl sheets would go behind, so it'd be no new intrusion into the wetlands and waterways, if you will. If in order to still comply with his Chapter 91 license, it does have to be in the same footprint as what's there right now. So Mr. Smith and I had chatted about his idea to extend that bulkhead, but at this time, that's not what is being asked for, and extend landward is what I mean, like towards the road. And then while we were talking about things, we did, Mr. Smith had said that there is an outdoor shower on the back of the house where there previously wasn't. And also I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the enclosure for the condenser on the roadside of the house. I didn't know what was starting to be constructed when I stopped the work, but it's essentially, I think, supposed to be fencing, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but it is connected to the house that goes around the condenser on the front, and just where this property is, everything is within the 50-foot buffer zone. So I asked Mr. Smith to not do any more work until we talked about things. So I am a little concerned about the shower being really pretty much right on the river, and just additional structure and potential chemicals and stuff there. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, so we're not going to move on this tonight, but we are going to discuss it. And so I think it'd be a good time to have commissioners express their thoughts on this. So I'll start with you again, Ernie.
With respect to the bulkhead, I'd like to see something more formal. Obviously, all we have now, I think, is a copy of an old approval for the existing bulkhead that might be there from, I'm not sure what the date is on this, but it looks like it's fairly old. So I would like an actual formal presentation as to how you're planning to put these in, the length of them, when you cut them off, are you going to capture the trimmings from these as you're cutting them, that sort of a thing, so that minimizes the impact to the river, which you'd be working right on top of. So that's my comments on the bulkhead. With respect to the shower, first question I think is, does it provide that does it have a drain that's hitched into, I think there's a tank on the property, right? Does it hitch into that tank?
There's a cesspool on the property right now, but there's gonna be a tight tank or a different situation depending on how I make out with Board of Health on that.
Yeah, and did you drain from the shower into that tight tank or the cesspool? Or is it just
that was my plan, was to tie it into the actual unit. Right now, it's not tied in to anything because I didn't want to do any additional work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not comfortable leaving it there if it hasn't been properly constructed. I would be in favor of having it removed completely at this point. And I guess just for the record, the shower was there. I put just a little fence around it to give me privacy. That's the only reason for doing that. It's mainly just for rinsing off when you come out of the river, out of the boat or whatever.
I thought you told me, Tom, that there might have been a shower, but it was in a different, maybe it was on the deck or in a different location, that there was not a shower where there is a shower right now.
No, there was a shower, but it was off a little bit, like a foot from that point right there. But roughly the same spot. All I did was I wanted to put an enclosure around it, so I had to move it a little bit to the left in order to not cover windows in the house.
Yeah. Well, I think the purposes of the two showers that you've described just now are completely different too. But it's not necessarily a rinse-off shower. If you put an enclosure around it, I suspect it's to be used as a shower, which I'm not comfortable with. Then you got soap, shampoos, and all that sort of thing that'd be flowing into the river. So I still am in favor of having it removed at this point and restoring it to what it was like previously. And I guess the enclosure for the condenser has been stopped, so it's not moving forward. I know there's part of it up. But that needs to be formally requested as well. So without approval for going forward on that. I assume any work would stop. Those are my comments.
Understood.
Stan, you're up.
Yeah, kind of going along with Ernie asking for a formal plan and process for installing this bulkhead or repairing the bulkhead. Are you qualified to do this work? I know you said you're going to be doing it, but what are your qualifications to make sure it's properly installed and put together?
Well, I've done some of this work before. This is not my first time. And I've spoken with a couple of different dock people about what the best way to handle it was, and they were the ones that recommended using these vinyl sheets and going behind the wall. And if for some reason I cannot complete it properly myself, I will hire someone. The main reason for doing it myself is budgetary reason, just extreme costs.
Well, I can understand that. I just want to make sure we don't have something installed that then fails because it wasn't properly constructed.
I totally understand that, and my goal is to do this better than it was in the past and make it right. And this vinyl is not that difficult to work with. It. Your main problem is what do you hit when you start driving it down, because you never know what you're going to hit. And sometimes you have to adjust depending on the situation at hand.
But I have nothing else.
All right, thanks, Stan. Mark?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn?
I have no questions. I pretty much agree with Ernie's comments.
All right, thank you. John?
Yeah, I agree with most of what's been said. I think that since this structure is in such a precarious place and such an environmentally sensitive place, that there shouldn't be anything done there casually, and there should be explicit engineered plans that we can look at and make a determination about whether it's a shower, changing the plumbing, putting in a fence around a compressor. Any of those things should be presented to the Conservation Commission in a very explicit, unambiguous way, I guess I should say. I don't think I can go along with a blurry verbal description of a shower that's not explicit. It needs to be on a plan, and then we need to consider it. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
I apologize if I'm not. I apologize if I'm not clear enough. I thought I was being as clear as I possibly could about it. I'm very aware of the environmental situation, and my goal is to not upset that in any way, shape, or form.
All right, Jim.
Yeah, I agree with the comments of Ernie and the other commissioners. That's all.
All right, thanks, Jim. So I guess I have a question for Amy on the timing of all this. So we want to see improved plans that show all these different modifications. Does this affect our decision-making on removing a structure or fines for activity without permits if we wait for plans?
Well, I think there's a couple different things here. From what I'm hearing from the commissioners, you want an engineered site plan, but it sounds like you want an engineered site plan for the wall as well as any other site improvements like the shower, the fencing, just any hardscape. So, I mean, it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, that seems to be the consensus that you want an engineered site plan.
Yeah, no, there's been activity that hasn't been authorized, and we would like to see it documented.
but not just the, so that's what I'm asking. Do you want an engineered site plan for the bulkhead?
I think that's a yes, and I think those same plans, there's such close proximity to the other structures, I think it wouldn't be that difficult to include them.
I would say yes, and that avoids duplicating, you know, having multiple filings for that. So that's one thing that you're going to direct him, if you want to direct him to have an engineered site plan for the wall and any other features such as the shower, the condenser enclosure. Tom, I know we had chatted in the past and you said you had desired to there was a fence in the front of the property, a split rail, and you had desired to put a fence back up there. So that would come into play here as well. So things like that. So it sounds like the commission's asking for that type of site plan. And then Brad, it is up to the commission. If you wanted to fine for any, you know, the shower or the condenser, I don't view the fencing for the condenser as serious potentially as the shower, being the shower is right pretty much on the water. But that is up to the commission.
Okay.
And timing wise, I mean, it's going to take a little time for Mr. Smith if he has to hire a company to do a site plan. I mean, a company already has his site on record from like the septic stuff, so maybe it wouldn't be too hard because you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel and do a brand new site plan. You just kind of have to add on to things. But I don't see that happening in 2 weeks.
Right. And so we can wait until receive plans before we decide on a fine, or should we act now to avoid
no,
passage
if you
of time?
think there is something, if there is something that you feel is a finable offense, or if you just want those structures removed, that's another option as well. You should act on it. You should act on it now. And just because of timing with the regulations about how much time you have to issue or do enforcement action if you want to.
Yeah, okay. So my concern is just the activity that went on without authorization. The enclosure, I agree with you. The shower, I think it depends on some of these specifics, whether I'd favor removing it or fining for it. But I am concerned about the shower going on without a permit, as well as the change in the bulkhead material without approval. And so
well, he didn't start installing that yet. He hadn't started that.
But what I thought, wasn't that being staged, or how was that?
Getting ready to, but I didn't see any new sheeting actually installed, Brad.
Okay.
If I could, all I did was take out the deck so I could see what's underneath it. And that's when I realized I couldn't do what I originally had planned to do because of all the debris, all the block and trees and everything else that have been put under that wall. So as soon as I saw that, then I realized I couldn't really do what I thought made sense to begin with. But right now I have no deck, which means that literally the deck is the only yard you have on that property. It's almost impossible to use. I can't let my kids there, my grandkids. You can't use that property without having the deck back in place. And I'd like to have that happen as soon as possible.
Yep, and I think we all agree with you on that. I just thought there was activity to moving ahead with the vinyl sheets that wasn't permitted. I thought that was the case.
No,
No, it was on site and they had, there was some digging, but
so that was an intention.
There was no installation.
Right, but the intention was there, correct?
No, there was no digging. I was just looking at what I needed to do and realizing I have to take this debris out and realizing it's dangerous to do. You can't really, I was hoping I could just shovel in behind it and put this barrier down behind it and then backfill. But once I got the deck out, it became a whole different story. But nothing was installed via the bulkhead. The only thing that was installed was an enclosure for a shower, which is attached to the house in two places, and it's got two pins that hold up the 4x4 metal pins. And as far as the front enclosure, all I was trying to do was cover up where the water heater sticks out of the house, the gas meter is, and the condenser for the air conditioning, which just is ugly. So I put this like 4-foot fence there just to enclose it so it doesn't look ugly.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I'd like to hear from anyone if they feel that they would like to see a fine at this time. Otherwise, I think we wait for the plans and then make a decision on shower removal. Does anyone have any strong thoughts on this at this point?
Hey, Brad, this is Stan. I do have one other question, though. This issue that the cesspool is still there and not and the tight tank is supposed to be getting installed. So
that's correct. I have a certain period of time to put the tight tank in, and we just started prepping for getting ready for that. But one of my proposals is actually to eliminate the tight tank and bring the sewer across the street to my other property to get it away from the actual water. That's what I want to do with Board of Health, but I'm in the process of working that. I'd like to get it all off of that property so there's no issues with that. But that's a separate deal. I'm not just trying to get through this bulkhead now. I got a liability issue. I got my insurance company on me. I got a dangerous situation there, and I want to rectify it as fast as possible.
But I guess my question to Amy was, I'm trying to remember, did that have to get approved from us, through us too? The tight tank?
Tight tank was approved by us, and I know I was aware that Mr. Smith was hoping to tie from this and across the street. I can't remember if we did that administratively, if it hasn't come to us yet, but I mean, that would be a positive, is to just pull everything out of here. But yeah, no, we approved the tight tank, and I honestly can't remember because there's been a couple of, different permits here. If we had already approved this, if I had administratively kind of approved the septic to be, the piping to be off, or if that was yet to come administratively, but.
All right, no, I just question. Okay, thanks.
So can I just make a couple comments, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, please.
I mean, so first of all, I also want to say that we had two neighbors who expressed that they, were very approving of the work that was going on here. So I do want to mention that. But I do want to take the time to say, I mean, this, it's not just wetlands protection, but it's also the Rivers Act. So the Rivers Act of the state of Massachusetts limits the amount of structure and development that can be done on the property. So I just want to kind of iterate to Mr. Smith that, it may seem just like a small shower enclosure or a small condenser enclosure. And it is small, but when you already have a teeny tiny property where you don't have any more square footage allotment under the Rivers Act to use, every square foot counts kind of against you. You are capped as to how much disturbance you can have on a lot. So while these things may seem small, they, because of the size of the lot and the proximity to the river, they do matter.
And I understand what you're saying, Amy. I'm just trying to give myself a little, privacy there and create something that doesn't look bad, because as everybody knows, that property sits in a very unique spot and everybody's walking by it. And just wanted to create a little privacy and liability issues. People tend to walk out on that property like it's their own. So it's, you know, that's one of the reasons for having fence helps to deter that, because of all kinds of issues, but one of them being privacy, another one being liability.
Yeah, but every little thing has to get approved because of your location there. And, you know, as soon as you kind of found out that you weren't going to be able to do the silt, the silt barrier fix and the backfilling, you know, before you ordered the vinyl sheeting, you should have contacted us, because that's the delay now. Is now we, you know, if you want to do that, it requires all these extra plans. But you know, we're not trying to make it any harder for you, but there is a process. So.
No, I understand that. That was vinyl sheeting that I had from another job. That's not something I ordered for that particular job. So.
Brad, if I can weigh in, listening to the work that needs to be done, whether or not they're going to put in the tight tank, or they're going to actually connect it to sewers across the road, I don't see this as happening quickly. I would imagine, especially with winter coming at us quickly, that it'll be some time before all this work is done, particularly with relation to the shower, which I view as an ongoing source of contaminant into the river, since it's not tied into any sort of drainage system. I guess I would be in favor of waiving a fine, but requiring that the shower be removed, as well as the fencing that's there right now, and then the work can progress once everything is finally approved. Presented to us with formal proposals and then approved.
Okay, Ernie, I think that's reasonable. I think we heard near consensus on that concept. So unless someone feels strongly otherwise, I think we can waive the fine and wait for our plans for the whole site. And I think we voiced our opinion pretty clearly that folks are interested in seeing the shower removed.
Is there a way that we can make the site safer in the meantime? Is there a way we can direct Mr. Smith to be able to make the site safer in the meantime? Because it's all open right now.
If I may weigh in, I would like to.
Well, we're waiting on plans. Is it possible to see plans for the next meeting?
I don't think so. Mark had some comments, and being a contractor in this field, it might be about, I'm sure it's valid.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. Given the time of year and given the importance and the integrity of the bulkhead, I'm much more concerned about that than I am the shower stall. I understand the relevancy to it, but I'm wondering if it might be worth a consideration to ask if he could engage a consultant to oversee the project, and then perhaps an engineer's as-built when it was done to secure the bulkhead and get that work behind him and deal with the other issues as they come up. But given the fact that it's now October, it's going to be January before you know it, and it would be nice to be able to get that bulkhead secured before we get a lot of ice and so forth in the river.
That would be fantastic for me. That's my main concern. The other stuff I can deal with, and I can pull the shower out, and when we can go through the process of that. If I could get that bulkhead set and my deck back up, at least I don't have to worry about the liability issues and that type of thing.
Yeah, so Mark, what you're suggesting though is to approve that process without seeing the plans. So I'm not sure you've got a consensus on that. Having plans, you know, if you can't have plans for the next meeting, the meeting after would be really valuable to have those. I don't know, what do you think, Amy? It seems like a little bit of a risk to almost approve this in an emergency fashion. That's what it kind of boils down to.
Yeah, and I don't view it, I mean, it doesn't qualify as a public health or safety threat. But if there was not a bulkhead here or anything here, then I would say absolutely not. But because you're going immediately behind an existing bulkhead, and we could stipulate that it's not to, go at any point beyond that to either side. Either it really has to be in the same footprint, just immediately behind it. As long as we had proof, I don't think I'm necessarily opposed to it, because I see the point of getting this done. Well, not just getting it done, but making it safe. But be very specific that it has to be immediately behind what you already have, not to exceed the length of anything. It's all disturbed area behind there anyways, so I don't see too much of a hazard there, and that they would have to retain an engineer to oversee and then come up with an as-built. It is a little risky, I do see that, but I think if you potentially leave this open, I don't know if you're going to get a plan in a month, to be honest. I mean, engineers are backed up at least 3 months from what I'm hearing now, and that's on the good end. I don't want to see more damage to that bulkhead. We have a bigger problem come wintertime. So I do see what Mark's saying, and I think we could make that work.
I guess it brings up a procedural question. How come this wasn't just an amendment to the existing order? As it seems like it's a new notice of intent.
It is a new notice of intent because we don't have, it was an RDA for the fix. And that's what the it was an RDA to fix, to do the minor fix that Mr. Smith thought he could do, and you can't amend an RDA.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have concerns. I view it as open-ended, and yeah, approving that with no timeline, I have concerns about that.
Well, just to clarify though, we can't approve it tonight anyway, right? Because we have to wait for the state, right? So the earliest would be 2 weeks from tonight, right?
Yes, thank you, John. Sorry, I did forget about that. That's a good point. We can't approve it tonight anyways because we don't have a state number.
So I'd just like to make one other minor point, which suggesting to the applicant that if he wants to obscure utilities, there are other ways to do it, which would be more friendly to the environment. That is, put in some native plantings around the utilities you want to hide, as opposed to constructing a fence. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying there. It's a difficult because you don't have the room. If you put something there that's going to grow, it's going to be an issue in the future that you're going to have to just keep dealing with it, growing up against the house, not being able to walk around the house, that type of thing. This fence is just a 4 foot high fence. It's painted the same color as the house, so it kind of blends in and eliminates. It's not just a condenser. It's the hot water heater hangs off the house there, and the gas meter is there, and it's just a simple way to fix it, and you don't have to constantly maintain it.
Yeah, so a little bit of a dilemma, Amy. We have to continue anyways. So the work cannot proceed until there's a DP number.
Right. So I would think it'd be a good idea for Mr. Smith to be in touch with some engineering services. You're going to have to anyways, and talk about starting to get a plan together.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I just don't know exactly what they're going to do for me. This is not a complicated thing. This is putting plastic behind a wall that exists and attaching it to it. And you go down as far as you can, and it varies from job to job, place to
We
place.
get cross-sectional site plan, we get cross-sections of proposed bulkheads frequently. So.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but we have a bulkhead that exists. I don't want to argue the point with you, Amy. It's fine. If you want me to do that, I will. I have deep concerns about the liability issues here. I already have my insurance company down on me about this, and it's a scary situation.
Well, if we knew that the plan was going to change, we could have hopefully have helped deal with that.
Right. If I had known it was going to change, I would have come to you way ahead of time.
Excuse me, Brad, Stan again. I'm getting a little concerned now that we, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. I'm a little bit concerned with, we seem to think of this as being oversimplified on the bulkhead, and we keep doing other changes in a very sensitive area without considering that the approvals are being made or needed. And I'm just concerned that to do something open-ended like this without the proper process, even though I understand the urgency of it, I'm just a little concerned as to whether it's going to be done properly.
I agree with you, Stan. I fully agree, and I think when we discuss this in 2 weeks when there's a DP number, I can't tell you that I'm going to support that approach without a plan. I'm very concerned about it.
So if I was to bring in a dock person that did this all the time, that would make a difference?
Well, I think you need a plan that shows the modifications that have occurred on your property, including this bulkhead. And you know, a dock person.
Nothing's been modified on the bulkhead. It's just it's there, and it needs to be repaired behind it.
Right. But there's been two things done that were not authorized. That's I think
the shower enclosure and the fence, the two fences, basically. Right,
and as a commission, I think we're all just growing weary of just having this continue to happen. Folks, this just continues to happen in town, and we're all concerned about it.
Yeah, if I had known I had to get approval for a fence, I would have been happy to do it. I just did not realize I had to. I didn't think I was affecting the environment in any negative way at all.
Yeah, you're in a no disturb zone where no new structures are allowed without authorization.
Yeah, I understand that now. I'm telling you that I didn't realize it. I didn't think I was affecting it in any negative way.
Well, we're going to continue. I guess you can come back and report to us, you know, what you've learned from a possible consultant on this. And when you have a DEP number, we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Any comments from the audience? All right, any additional comments, commissioners, or from Amy?
Yeah, Brad, sorry. I'm still concerned about that shower stall staying there without being hitched up to a drain or anything like that.
All right, well then I
have no problem in taking that down. I'll get that down.
All right, thanks, Ernie. Well, I'll move that we continue this until October 21st with expectations of an update from Mr. Smith on his consultations on a plan, and also move that ask the shower and stall be removed.
Understood.
Have a second, please.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, then I'll ask for a roll call, starting with Ernie.
What is the motion is what, Brad?
To continue until October 21st,
Yes, okay.
on our next meeting with an update from the proponent, as well as the removal of the shower install.
I'm in favor of that. Thank you.
Okay, Stan?
Aye.
All right, Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And myself, Brad, aye. So the motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you for your time, Mr. Smith, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you as well.
Okay, next we have a notice of intent for 11 Georgia Lane, waterfront parcel, map 104, parcel D1-6. It's a proposal to elevate a walk-in stairway with a seasonal dock. Looks like Dan's here to represent the project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Croto from Moran Engineering. I'm here, and Ronald Pepin, the applicant and property owner, is also on the line, I see. So this project will be to create safe access to the small beach that Ron and his wife Maureen own, and then a dock going up from that to 2.5 feet deep. The end of Georgia Lane, the subdivision around Georgia Lane, which encompasses 6 properties, have an easement to the beachfront. The Pepins, which is number 11 Georgia Lane, and number 13 Georgia Lane, have ownership of the beachfront property. And it's split in half in the deeds. The Pepins own the east half, and number 13 owns the west half. Right now, there is access on the west half down to that sand area for the six families that have an easement to the full beach area. Getting down that one area is overwhelmed right now. So overflow has gone straight ahead down the slope of Georgia Lane, also to access the sandy beach area to the east. So the Pepins are looking to create a safe and stable raised walkway down to the beach area, and then a dock, seasonal dock from there out into the water. And then I certainly informed them that the existing area that's grass and stone, that's the walkway, would need to be let go back to natural state, whether planted or let nature come back on its own in that area instead of being grass and an eroded walkway. So this came through John Domo, so they do have a contractor. He can be on. We know we still have to hear from some state agencies. We heard from Division of Marine Fisheries, who, because of Heron, they put the April 1st to June 30th no work time in place. We still have to hear from NHESP, and we don't have the DEP file number, which seems to be the norm, at least for this week, because I ran into this with another town, and the person, though, is going to be back on Friday at DEP, I guess, and we'll issue them. So with that, I guess, but we would like to get comments from the commission. We also have to go to Waterways on the 21st. John Rendon, the harbor master, has looked at the property and has, through email, expressed that he sees no issue with it, and he obviously is a big part of Waterways. So we don't see any issue, but we know we have to go through Waterways on the 21st. But if we could get the comments from the board, from the commission to make any changes needed, then that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Amy, do you have any summary comments for us?
Sure, and I just wanted to clarify a few things that we kind of went, the commission and I went back and forth on site today, as well as Dan and I went back and forth with emails with. So Mark Coleman, you were correct. We did change our regulation, and in terms of distance between structures on fresh water. So in saltwater, we require 65 feet. In freshwater, we require 50. And also, and Dan corrected me, state, I think, used to require 25 feet from property lines, but now 15 is kind of the minimum that they would consider. So here, where you have 16 and a half and 19 feet respectively from the lot lines, and the closest structure is the other dock at 19 Georgia Lane, which is 55 feet away from this proposed structure. So hopefully that kind of clarifies that. Again, we don't have a water, they haven't gone to waterways, and we don't have a DEP number, and we are waiting for heritage. So I would just recommend, so we don't have to rush on the 21st, but and so we can get something formal for waterways, that if you do continue, you would do it to November 4th, because it's just really hard to go to both waterways and conservation on the same night with overlapping pretty much meeting times. But that being said, the rest of the dock itself meets our regulations as far as width, spacing of decking, depth at the end, things like that. The walkway, just because of the severity of the slope, it's a pretty high slope. You can't do a straight shot down and end up way past the water if you tried to do that. So there's a jog in it. And if you go to the site, you kind of can see that that is in a naturally, or whatever, naturally cleared area. There's really no major vegetation that they're going to have to take down in order to put that in that location. There is runoff right now on the slope from where people are kind of just running down the slope to get to that little sandy area. So I think it could be, people are going to access the water here. I think this could be a better means of doing so. I did have one question, and it might have gone way before your time of owning the property. I don't know, but kind of the informal low rock wall that's at the base there. Do you, maybe Mr. Pepin knows if there's any history of that? Just curious. Doesn't seem completely natural.
Yeah, no history. It was there before we own the property. A little bit of history of it, though, is this year was the first year that the gravel was exposed. So I think it eventually eroded to the point. I think this winter the water was high, and it eroded because previously there was a grassy area on top of that, but after this winter, that area was taken away. The water was up that high, and it eroded, and the gravel that is there was exposed. We've owned the property for 3 years. This was the first year that area was exposed.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any other comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to comments and questions for commissioners. Maybe I'll flip things around and ask for Jim to start.
Yeah, sure. I'm here. It seems like everything's pretty straightforward. When was it that the regulation changed from 65 feet to 50 feet, Amy?
I would have to check, but if you do, if you go online, I thought it was 2018. It could have been the previous rendition in 2016. I can check that. And that was for freshwater only. And it probably wasn't 2018, it was probably 2016.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be the only thing I could see the check out there. That's all for me.
I'll check that.
All right, thanks, Jim. Carolyn? Oh, you're still muted, Carolyn.
No, I don't have any major comments. As long as the 15 feet from the property lines is generally acceptable and the 50 feet between docks we've already approved, so I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, John.
Yeah, I have no comments. That's fine.
Okay, Mark?
Students
No remarks?
simply at the center.
Okay, thank you. Stan?
No comments.
Okay, and then Ernie?
And no comments here either.
All right, thank you. I guess my comment, I didn't get down to the site, so I do want to get down there, but I haven't yet. And so the plans are showing the stone quite consolidated, and yet the photographs indicate, you know, there's stones here and there. There's no proposed plans to change those stones, is that correct?
That's correct. There was no, that was not part of the notice of intent, any change there. It was just the access to the beach and the dock.
Okay, yeah, it's just the way it comes out in the schematic. Okay. Well, I think you're hearing not a lot of concerns. I think, did you go over the plantings and the vegetation? Any changes to the trees? Any trees coming down?
I didn't notice any trees needed to come down.
Okay.
I mean, the area that's kind of eroded, you probably going to want to seed that. At this point, it'll be in the spring, probably, with a native grass mix, and maybe we can chat. You know, if this is to get approved, we can chat about maybe potential other little plantings, which would help stabilize that slope a little bit more for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the next meeting after next is November 4th?
November 4th, yep.
Okay. Any comments from members of the audience? All right, any further comments, Dan, or are you ready for a motion to continue?
No, motion to continue to the 4th would be good for us.
Okay. Well, I move that we do so and continue for 11 Georgia Lane until November 4th.
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Stan, and then by roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Okay, Carolyn?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mark?
And
Aye.
welcome to the
All right, Stan?
Aye.
And then Ernie?
Aye.
Myself, Brad, aye. So the motion carries unanimously. We'll see you in about a month.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Amy, I guess I'm okay to continue the next hearing, and then, or is it Mill Point that's actually, they've asked to be withdrawn?
Yeah, two separate motions.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move that we continue 7 Secaucus Way, map 4, parcel C1-4, proposed pier ramp and float in the Herring River until November 4th.
I'll second.
Second that. Okay, thanks, Carolyn. And then we'll have a roll call. All those in favor say aye, starting with Jim.
Aye.
All right, Carolyn.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Ernie.
Aye.
And myself, Brad, aye. So the motion carries unanimously. And the next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for 14 Mill Pond Road, map 1, parcel J1-94. It is a proposed pier ramp and float in the Herring River. The applicant has requested to withdraw without prejudice the notice of intent for this project. Any further action needed for us on this, Amy?
You need to vote to let them withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, to accept that. Okay. All right, then I move that we accept the withdrawal without prejudice for the proposed 11 Old Mill Point Road on the proposed pier ramp and flow proposal in the Herring River. Can I have a second, please?
A second.
All right, seconded by Mark.
Just
All those
real
in favor
quick, that's 14 Mill Point Road.
Oh, sorry.
I want to make sure we get it right because it's a withdrawal. We want to make sure we do the right things.
Yeah, I know. Yep. All right then. So we'll start. All those in favor say aye, starting with Jim.
Aye.
All right, Carolyn.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Mark.
But this debate
Aye.
is not about.
Stan.
Aye.
Ernie.
Aye.
And myself, Brad. Aye. So the motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we've gotten through the notice of intents, and now we're on to administrative review request. And this is for 53 North Road, map 19, parcel M1, installation of a 25-foot flagpole within the 50-foot buffer zone. Do you want to describe this one, Amy, or would you like to have a proponent describe it?
I'm not sure if they're on the phone or not, but I'm happy to describe it and then they can chime in. Oh, I do see him here.
Hi, Amy. This is Greg from Boat Flagpole.
Hi, Greg, and I do see Tom on the line as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the reason I brought this to you is it came in front of for me administratively, but based on commission's past conversations about any activity in the 50-foot no disturb, I was like, well, maybe we'll just bring it to you for approval instead of me approving it. So the pole would go in an existing like used area up next to the house and patio. It is within the 50-foot buffer, but given that it's a flagpole and it's in an existing, lawn used area, I would have, I recommend approval of it. But seeing as how it's something new in the 50, I thought I could quickly, hopefully bring it to you folks.
Okay. Quick question for you, Amy. Is there any place outside the 50 that would be suitable?
That would be a question for Mr. Dudek, the owner, if another location would be suitable.
Yeah, all the locations that are in the part of the property where we'd want the flag are within 50 feet. I mean, as you know, our property, the river wraps around it.
Mm-hmm.
So almost any place that the flag would be visible from the river would be in the 50-foot area. And this basically is right adjacent to our house. So it's proximate to a structure, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's, pretty simple request. Let's put it to the commissioners and see how they feel. I'll start with you, Jim.
Yeah, my only comment was that it looked like any fertilizers are being used on the property.
No, I mean, for the 85th time, no.
Okay.
I mean, there's no fertilizer. There hasn't been, for whatever reason, it keeps coming up, but no.
Okay. Otherwise, I don't have any other comments.
All right. Okay, Carolyn?
This seems like a structure in the 0 to 50 that is unnecessary. On the other hand, it's hard to turn down a flagpole flying the American flag. And I appreciate your coming to the commission before you do it. It seems to me it would have been a very easy one to just put up and hope nobody noticed.
So yeah, we try not to do that.
Well, I really appreciate your doing that. So just for that reason, I would be in favor of this.
Okay, thank you. John?
No comments.
Okay. Mark?
I fully support this.
Okay. Stan.
Well, I'm not going to be not patriotic, but I do have a question. I mean, I'm looking at the drawing and I can't read the numbers on here. How far away is this from?
I stepped it off today. It's probably 25 feet to my dock.
Okay.
And it's probably a little bit less than that to the wetlands to the east.
Yeah, he's between 20 and 25.
And is it literally just a pole being installed or something bigger?
I'll let Greg answer that.
Hello. Chris, the installer. I am also on the air here.
Great. Chris, would you like to take it?
Yeah, sure. I'm Chris Baker. I'm a landscape designer from Norton. When I was on the Conservation Commission in Norton, I've moved to the Cape. Now, my retirement, I install flagpoles for Greg. So I would be the installer if you had any questions there.
Well, my question is it just basically a pole in the ground, or are we looking at like some kind of like a 6-foot circle with some ornamentation and everything else?
Okay, it's a carefully dug 24-inch across by 2.5 feet deep. Take the material out. I put a sleeve in the middle and level it. The sleeve is made out of fiberglass. I mix cement in a wheelbarrow and I fill the hole up within 2 inches to grade. So it's a little bit below the grade of the lawn. And clean out any cement and put it in a plastic pot, take it with me, and washout area I looked at down the driveway just to wash the wheelbarrow out. That would be a good 75, 80 feet away down, and the grade is down, and it was a crushed shell driveway, and wouldn't be any residue anyway. Scrape it all out and take it with me.
Yeah, we're not going to landscape around it either.
That's my question. So it's literally just a flagpole, right?
It's a flagpole, yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Ernie.
No comments.
Okay. All right, then would somebody like to make a motion on this as a proposal for administrative review approval?
Yeah, I move we permit the installation of a flagpole at 53 North Road under administrative review.
Second.
Okay. Who was that second?
Me.
Mark.
Yes.
Okay, so roll call. All those in favor say aye, and we'll start with Jim.
Aye.
Okay, Carolyn.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Ernie.
Aye.
Myself, Brad. Aye. Okay, you've got the flagpole passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you from Chris
Thank
Baker.
you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a request for an extension permit from Air Lane Homeowners Association. It's the association beach between Pine and Pilgrim Roads, maintenance activity, a 3-year request. Amy, can you give us a summary on this, please?
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. Hopefully Helene Monahan, the president of the Air Lane Homeowners Association, is also on the line.
I am.
Hi, Helene.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. So the Air Lane Homeowners Association between Pine and Pilgrim Roads would like to continue to rake their beach. And at the last meeting, the commission, where a representative wasn't able to attend, the commission just asked a couple of things. One, I gave you the orders of conditions in your Dropbox, so you know the conditions. And we wanted to hear from the association kind of what their practices were in regards to the raking, because the permit only allows raking once per year. It does seem, and Helene, you can elaborate on this, that you're doing it more often than that, but it's all handwork with a rake and a wheelbarrow. So I'll leave it up to you and you can go ahead.
Okay, we just have a kid rake with a hand rake, and just after, high tide, during high tide, we have very little beach. And then when high tide is receding, he rakes up the seaweed. So we have some space on the beach, which was really important this year as we, left the 12 feet between beach goers. So without being able to rake the seaweed into small piles, we don't take it off the beach. It eventually goes back in, but we wouldn't have space for people on the beach otherwise. So we don't do a great big raking of the beach. It's just to rake it into small piles so there's more sitting space on the beach.
Okay. I didn't know that you didn't remove it. I thought you did remove it. So it's...
No, we left it.
If you don't remove it, that's good.
Yeah, we leave it in a pile right at the edge of the seagrass and the beginning of the sand. So, and again, it's just to create some space on the beach. And this is an extension of a permit that we've had granted before.
Yeah.
So, that's basically it. It's, like I said, it's no machinery, no taking off the beach. It remains on the beach.
So a recommendation I would have to the commission, if you do consider extending, is that we modify the language. Because right now the language, does say once per season. It doesn't clarify that it's done by hand or machine. To me, it seems like, especially because you're leaving it on, that it seems fairly minor, the activity, because it just goes back out with the tide anyways. Right. But if you were to extend, maybe we could do a slight change in plan or an amendment in the future if you were to, kind of change it to the way that they manage it now.
That sounds good to me.
Well, it's up to the commission. I'm just suggesting that we're actually, your permit, whatever, or a new permit or whatnot, is going to actually reflect what your practices are. So.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's go through and see what everyone feels. Jim, do you have any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, sounds fine with me. If the permit could specify that it's only for handwork, seems to be a good idea.
Okay. Carolyn?
That's fine with me. This says in the special conditions, notification must be provided to the commission not less than 48 hours prior to proposed cleaning. Well, obviously, if they're raking every week, that hasn't been done. And would that be one of the conditions that we would eliminate?
If it's handwork, I don't want to be notified every time you're doing it.
That's my point.
So if I can cut in for 1 second here, because this is an extension, it is officially on an agenda. If you were comfortable with that, we could treat this almost like a change in plan. If the commission wanted me to make those changes, we could do that. So just throwing that out there. It may not be the consensus, but we could do it that way if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. John?
Yeah, okay. So I looked at the old order of conditions. It's now 20 years old. And what it specifies appears to me to have nothing to do with what they're doing now. I mean, it's about machines. There's like, how many thousands of yards of sand that are to be brought on. It seems irrelevant to me. I have no problem with what is being described as what is done now. My question is, if it's not an onerous requirement, shouldn't they just get a new permit that specifies what they're doing now, as opposed to, you know, crossing out everything that's on the existing permit and writing in new language?
I think, it would be, it's up to the commission, but it is kind of, I think it is a little bit onerous.
What does it require? Does it require Chapter 91 or?
No, because probably not. No, I wouldn't say it would trigger that, but it would be a no notice of intent, and it would just. I think we could accomplish the same thing by doing it this way and prevent them from having to, because it would be a new notice of intent where they'd have to notify abutters and they would have to do X, Y, and Z. And I think we could do this a different way that would satisfy it, in my opinion. But they weren't doing everything in such a fairly benign fashion. I would say absolutely it has to be a new permit, but yeah, I have to let a dog inside the house. Hold on.
Okay, that's all I have, Brad.
Yeah, and I would agree with Amy with the provision that I think we should all look closely at what she drafts and take the time to really think about it and edit it, because this is the opportunity, and it would just be that in lieu of having a new notice of intent. So, Mark?
I have no remarks.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Stan.
Yeah, I think whatever is the simplest way to do this. I mean, they've got the permit, and I agree it should just really state what they're doing and not some old historical information. So to update it the simplest way we can is what I agree with.
Yep. Okay. Ernie?
I'm in agreement with all of that. Yep.
Okay. All right, Amy. So it sounds like we're in agreement to what you proposed, and we will get a look at it. Let's see. Would it come back as an order to us to review?
I'm going to do it as a change in plan, really. I mean, I guess I could do it as an amended order, technically. That's an amendment. I'm going to put it on the next agenda. The language change you will see at the next meeting.
Oh, good. Okay, that's all I was interested in.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on as an amendment.
Okay.
I have a question, Brad.
Sure. Yep.
Are in the new whatever we're calling the special conditions that Amy's drafting, are we also including the replenishment provisions here? I'm so surprised that something like that replenishment would be in automatic, an annual, just renew it any which way.
Well, actually, they're covered under, you have a town-wide nourishment program where as long as homeowners on the town beaches as well are allowed to deposit sand, provided they meet your beach nourishment regulations. So they're covered already to nourish if they want to under that permit. So that's going to drop off.
Okay. And only by the hour company.
It was a weird order of conditions, but I think we can simplify things a lot more we'll do it as an amendment. I'll type it up as if it is, and you'll see it next meeting.
Thank you.
For Helene, you're welcome to attend electronically, but you don't necessarily have to. What it's going to do is change your permit to essentially say how you're allowed to do what you're doing, which is hand rake, not remove the material from the beach, stuff like that. That's what it's going to say.
Right. So
Your permit is.
At this point, I don't have a permit. Not yet. Or do I?
You're still active under the state right now.
Okay. All right. Great.
All right.
Sounds
All right,
good.
Amy, so what I should do is just move to continue until the 21st, and you'll come in with that amendment?
Yeah, the amendment. And
Okay.
I'll provide the language to you, Helene, prior to that meeting anyway. So if you have any questions or comments, you can make them, but I don't think you'll need to attend that meeting on October 21st, okay?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I move that we continue the request for an extension permit for the Air Lane Homeowners Association and the Association Beach between Pine and Pilgrim Road, the plan for maintenance activity until October 21st, 2020. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Ernie, and we'll go through a roll call, and those in favor say aye. First up is Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn. John.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Ernie.
Aye.
Myself, Brad, aye. So motion carries unanimously. Okay. What would you like to do next, Amy?
Let's do 14 Hardin Lane.
Okay.
Actually, I was gonna say, if it's all the same to the Hardin Lane and the commissioners, in order to get I think somebody's on here for the certificates of compliance for John Joseph. And those would literally take, I think, 2 minutes. So in order to get them off the call, can we do those first?
Sure.
Yeah, so they don't have to sit through the rest of the conversation. They've been waiting, so. Let's do the two certs of compliance for 168 John Joseph.
Okay.
One is for expansion, replacement of hardscape and mitigation plantings. And then the other one was maintenance of seasonal floating dock. So I've been out to the site a few times throughout the course of these projects here, and I found them to be in compliance. The plantings have been done and in for a couple of seasons. I would recommend a certificate of compliance with the ongoing condition of off-season floated storage of the dock.
Okay. I move we approve the certificate of compliance for both 168 John Joseph Road, SE 32-2391, and 168 John Joseph Road, SE 32-2413. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, seconded by Ernie. All those in favor say aye, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Ernie?
Aye.
Myself, Brad, aye. Okay, the motion carries for both certs. Thank you very much. All right, Amy, do you want to go back to the...
Yeah, let's go back to Hardin Lane.
Okay.
And I know the owners are on the call. If you want me to kind of give you a brief overview history, and then I can turn it over to them.
Okay, sounds good.
So it came to my attention a week or two ago that some vegetation removal was occurring over at 14 Hardin Lane, which abuts Muddy Creek. And I went to the property and found a Twins Tree Service company doing some work, and had done removed some trees from immediately around the house. The house is, by my estimation, based on other plans, because we don't have a recent site plan, The house is about 200 feet away from the river. And there had also been some tree work, removal of a couple of small maples and some chips from a lot of the trees that had been removed within the 0 to 50 foot buffer, immediately to the wetland itself and just in the 100-foot buffer in general. So we didn't have a permit for that. Upon speaking with the tree company, it did seem apparent that they had some knowledge of conservation. The owner was not present. We spoke afterwards, but I had directed the tree company to stop work or allowed them to clean up. I had asked them to remove the chips that they had deposited. They did not do that. And we're that's where we were. So I met with the owners, the Hanberries. This house hasn't been lived in quite some time. And they, it was pretty clear that the trees that were closest to the house, farthest away from the wetland, really were a hazard. And we would have approved administratively. They can correct me, but they had mentioned that the tree company said that they were all set, everything was far enough away, etc. So they seemed genuinely upset at the way things had happened. So we have the violations that I see are, there was a couple of small maples that were cut down in close proximity to the wetland, and then more so just the very thick layer of chips that were deposited throughout the 100-foot buffer zone, and in some cases actually into the wetland itself. So we can go over this, but my recommendation to you is actually that based on conversations and what I saw, it is the tree company that I would say is more liable. I mean, certainly the homeowner has liability because it is their property, but I think that they had acted on good faith with this company. And I would recommend the owners still have to remove the chips. And I know that they've been calling companies to try to get them to do that. Remove the chips, seed the area this fall, and then in the spring, work with me or us to replant the buffer zone closest to the wetland. And I recommend you find the tree company. So with that, sorry, that was a lot. I'm happy to hand it over to the owners or the representatives, whoever's here. I don't know if the tree company is here, but.
All right, thank you, Amy. Yeah, if you would just like to briefly respond, thank you.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everybody. This is Nicole Hanberry. I'm here to represent 14 Hardin Lane. We unfortunately have gotten ourselves into a little bit of a predicament here. Just a little bit of background. We're sort of inheriting this house from very close friends of ours, and it hasn't been occupied in 18 years. We're from out of state. And these aren't excuses, and I'm not trying to get out of anything. We're very environmentally conscious, and it was great working with and meeting with Amy over this situation. But our initial thought was that we were on a marsh, and from the information that we got, we thought we had 100 feet, from the marsh, and then the trees that we cut down were a hazard to the house. There's visual damage, but we thought that they were outside of the protected area, which we found out that they are not. And so sort of, wrapping it up, long story short, we definitely are, we violated the conservation area, and we're working with Amy and making corrections diligently to get everything back in order. Unfortunately, when you put someone or a couple that recently inherited a house with a tree company that doesn't really maybe understand or care about the environment around them, and is basically there to just take down the trees and make their money, and not educate the homeowners on what is conservation land and what is not, then there's always going to be this situation where there's going to be violations. And that's sort of the situation that we got caught up in. And again, of course, hindsight is 20/20, and we could have done, a better job of maybe getting a little bit more research on the area where we purchased the house. So we're here today to, make things right. I have been in touch with Matt Eldridge, who is willing to take out the wood chips, and he's been in touch with Amy. And we also have done research on plants and grass to fix the area that has been disturbed.
All right, thank you. Thank you for calling in tonight and explaining the situation. All right, well, let's get comments and questions from commissioners, starting with Jim.
Yeah, I agree that the tree company should be fined, and the area should be replanted. And that's about it for me.
Okay, thanks, Jim. All right, Carolyn.
I agree with exactly what Jim said.
Yep. Okay. John?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should find the tree company, and what Amy was suggesting is, I think, a $600 fine. But maybe we should talk about that. But I would go along with that. And there were a lot of wood chips there, and they were spilling into the wetlands. And I think that's pretty egregious. I mean, the cutting is bad, but dumping all those wood chips there completely oblivious apparently to the problem that would create. I think it's a big problem. So as soon as they can get moved out, I think that would be great. And I assume, Amy, you would work with the owners to figure out a planning scheme?
Yeah, I would work with them. I know that they're planning on doing in the future, as they're cleaning up the property, some site work. So coming up with a site plan that would also show kind of towards the edge of wetland where some planting could be done. And then once we came up with that, it could just be a discussion topic like this was at a future meeting with conservation. We could do that over the fall and winter and prep them for planting in the spring. But in the meantime, as soon as those chips get out of here, the area can be seeded with a native grass seed mix, which some of that will germinate to hold soils during the wintertime.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Mark?
No remarks.
Okay. Stan?
No additional comments. John said it all.
Okay, thank you. And Ernie?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, there might be people here from the audience who might want to speak.
Okay.
And I can certainly, if people have questions about why the fine, we mentioned the fine the way it is, I can address that if needed. So.
All right. And any comments from members of the audience? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a motion, and I think Amy has suggested we have a fine for both the cuttings as well as the distribution of the chips for $600.
We're allowed to fine $300 per activity, and the trees up near the house, I think we would have permitted because they're so far away from the wetland, they're a hazard, but I'm particularly talking about the maples that were closer to the wetland and of course the chips.
Mm-hmm. Okay, would someone like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve a fine for 2 activities and a fine of $300 for each. One fine for this distribution of wood chips within the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer, and a fine for removal of trees within the 1,500-foot buffer to the responsible tree company.
Okay, could I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion or comments from anybody?
Just that I will be in touch with the Hanburys about the generation of a replanting plan.
Oh, good. All right, well, thank you. Okay, well, all those in favor say aye, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
John?
Aye.
Dan?
Oh, yeah, aye.
Sorry, Mark, I skipped you. Mark? I'm getting punchy here. Did Mark call?
Aye again.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Stan, we got an aye from Stan. Ernie?
Yeah, I'm aye.
Okay, and myself, Brad, aye. So motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you for calling in and explaining the situation, and thank you, Amy, for all your diligent work on this. Okay.
Thank you. Well,
Yep.
I just want to say thank you, and we really look forward to working with you in the next couple months with 14 Hardin Lane, the property, and just building as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. What should we do next? The order of conditions, Amy?
Yeah, let's do the order for 42 Julian.
Okay.
Get that out of the way.
All right.
Hopefully it's pretty simple. It was one of those ones that is pretty much getting out of the buffer and the floodplain for the most part, so.
Yep.
Hopefully I got it right. I'm getting punchy too, Brad. It's getting to be that time.
Oh boy. Yeah. Long day. Lots of
Long
stuff.
day.
Yep.
Anybody have any comments on 42 Julian?
I don't have any comments.
No comments.
That sounds like a motion.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve the order of conditions for 42 Julian Road.
I'll second.
Seconded by Carolyn. And so we're going to go through the roll with the affirmative saying A, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ernie?
Aye.
Myself, Brad? Aye. Okay, the order motion passes, and we're into discussion.
Okay.
So, Amy, I guess we have this, this tolling concept, if you want to describe that.
Actually, we have Annie here as well.
Annie's not getting tired.
This is, Mom, it's about time to go to bed. Come on. So actually, the language, I would just recommend that we adopt the same language. And the cat's crying at the same time. It's just craziness over at this house. So I would just recommend we adopt the same language. Consistency is nice. I don't want moving targets for when permits are going to extend. So what this does is previously the permits were kind of under the state extended indefinitely from the emergency order, but now the language is such that the new date for expiration of an approval would be how many days remained as of March 10th until the approval or deadline. So say it was sometime in July, you'd count between March 10th and July, whatever. And whatever that is, you add it on to the life of the permit. So things could be valid for another couple months. So I would just recommend that we adopt this language to stay consistent so that under the bylaw, things would have the same expiration date as our act permits. And I brought this to the attention of other agents and they're like, yeah, we need to do that too.
Yep.
So.
All right, anyone have any thoughts on that? It seems like pretty straightforward.
So this means that any permit that was active as of March 20, we potentially have to consider a new expiration date.
Yes.
But
orders of conditions, not, RDAs too. So determinations, orders of conditions and determinations.
It's just, I guess I'm trying to understand what the implications, if they're big or just little.
Right. It's the way they had it before was so much easier. I mean, this whole finding out the time period between expiration and
yeah, all right.
It's going to be a bit of a calculation for me every single time. Instead of it, before it was just kind of open-ended. Well, we're in a state of emergency. Everything's extended until the state of emergency is done. But I think they kind of realize the state of emergency is not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, right. So do you have any like ballpark estimate for how many open permits that were as of March 20? Is it like 100?
Well, we had, open permits that have expired, that would have normally expired since then, maybe? Right. Or just, yeah.
Any permit that was open then?
Probably about 40 or 50, because if you look at, just what our average permit issuance is per year, and it's been about a half a year. Yeah, puts it around 40, 50. So.
But I'm sorry, but isn't it any open permit? It's not just the ones that were open for the last 6 months. Any open permit now, its expiration date gets extended by whatever was remaining on that permit when the state of emergency expires. So it's everything that was open as of March 20th. And what about?
Correct. And going forward, now we're in a state, right.
So it's 80 permits a year, and given that most of these permits have a 3-year deadline, so that's 240 plus an additional 80 every year since March 20th. Okay.
I don't like it, but I just,
Yeah,
the state's already done it. So I just don't want to create two, I don't know. I don't want to create two deadlines. I think it's.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just trying to understand what it means. That's all.
I get you, because the wording is not as poor with it too.
Okay. All right.
All right, Amy, so you're looking just for a vote to approve that adoption of the language?
Adopt the language, yep.
Yeah.
Do as a policy if you want.
Yeah. Would someone like to make that motion, please?
I'll make a motion to modify our bylaw to conform to the state's wording regarding extending permits until a state emergency is over.
If I could make a quick correction, you can't modify a bylaw. We can only do that at town meeting. So you would just motion to adopt the state's language in regards to permit tolling. That would be okay.
There you go.
So I'll second.
All right, seconded by John. And we'll go through a roll call, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Bernie.
Aye.
Myself, Brad. Aye. So motion carries. We have our new language.
I have a comment for Amy. It sounds like you need an accountant to help you do some calculating.
I'll have Melissa do it, our assistant.
Well, you're looking at a retired one, remember?
I know. I may have to call on you.
That was my what I was getting at.
All right.
Okay, any update on the final draft, Amy, of the Herring River Bog Management Plan?
Yeah, I played with it a little bit more. I did not add it to the entire document of the Bell's Neck plan yet. But I think if you were to want to, my new additions I put in yellow in your Dropbox to what you had originally generated, Brad. And this is like the second or third time that I've reviewed it again. If you wanted to, if you felt ready, I mean, we can definitely talk about it tonight. But we might be ready to schedule a public meeting for this if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's my preference, is to go ahead and schedule something. Do you think that you will get to the point where you go through the entire previous management plan so that we can discuss that in the same public hearing?
I would love to say I could. I just don't know with how things are going lately, if that's going to happen in the next month or two.
Yeah. Well, let me think. My guess is that the 21st of October and November 4th are going to be plenty going on.
The 21st actually doesn't look, I mean, I think the 21st is a little bit too soon to adequately get a lot of public outreach about it, because I think we would want to have a lot of public outreach to have good conversation.
Yeah.
So honestly, the 21st doesn't look bad. I don't think we got any new applications, so it's only the things that got continued.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's a bit too soon. I mean, maybe we could try to put it on. Is there a possibility of putting it on November 4th and starting with that, and maybe starting the meeting a little bit earlier, like 6 o'clock or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Or even, or I know that people are working, so I don't know how much earlier we could go, but I don't want to get into the end of November because you get into towards Thanksgiving and holidays. So
yeah, I guess I like November 4th. It's gonna be dark at 6 o'clock, you know, and I think it's time to do that. I would like to have the whole plan, but if we don't have it, then I think that's okay. At least we can discuss it. If we all can, you know, dig into it and talk about it. We've talked about it a fair amount. The different features in the plan we'd like to see updated.
I will do my absolute best, and by all means, like, I'll resend, or I'll put it in Dropbox. How about that? The plan again, the entire Bell's Neck plan.
Yep.
Please send me your comments, edits, and I can at least incorporate those.
Okay.
But I will do my best to get as far as I can too.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go down the list and just ask everyone how they feel about November 4th to have a public hearing on this long discussed topic. Jim, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think we should do it November 4th.
Okay. Carolyn?
I think that might be very problematic if we have a discussion on, a discussion that lasts an hour, hour and a half on this Bell's Neck, and then we start our regular meeting. I mean, we could literally have a 6-hour meeting.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think we can be very effective with a 6-hour meeting.
No.
I think we tend to melt down at about 4 or 3.5 even.
We're already 3 1/4 for tonight's meeting, and this hasn't been very contentious.
Yeah, you're right. Well, but I do feel that this is kind of a priority for us right about now. So maybe we could ask Amy to do what she can to keep the 4th from getting too difficult.
Either that, or I could look, if you wanted to do a separate meeting just for this, but that, I want to be able to check in with Channel 18, and somebody has to, things have to get recorded and broadcast, and we have to make sure we don't conflict with other boards and committees, which can be hard. So I could look at another date around then, but the easiest thing would just be to do it on the 4th logistically.
Yeah, I don't necessarily favor the separate meeting because I think we've had a public hearing on this twice, and so there's been a fair amount of discussion, and we all have busy lives. I guess if you could book it on the 4th, maybe start a half an hour early, and let us know how things look, and see if you can put things off that might make it, what Carolyn's suggesting. I mean, we've gone to 11 o'clock before, and it's not fun. And I think under this format, it'd be really difficult,
Yeah, we'll keep it in mind at the next meeting too on October 21st. Don't continue things till November 4th. Do it to the
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Just have that motivation. All right, well, those are things to think about. John, what do you feel?
Yeah, well, I agree. You should go for it on the 4th and try to make accommodations to make that work.
Okay. Mark?
Well, I think the public hearing is a good opportunity, so the 4th is fine.
All right. Stan?
I agree, but I think we've already continued a couple of biggies for the 4th, or at least one biggie for the 4th, so.
Yeah, you're right.
They've continued a few other times already, so I don't know if they might even want another continuance. Who knows?
Right. No, I'm just mentioning it because we already have 2 already scheduled, so. But yeah, I'm fine with, I'm fine with the public meeting.
All right, Ernie?
Yeah, my only question, do we have any idea what the public interest is going to be in this? Because if we've got, a couple dozen people that call in and want to have comments on this, then forget it. That's going to kill the whole night.
I was thinking about this, and I think maybe we should do it how the Board of Selectmen do it, where if you want to comment, you have to let us know ahead of time. You essentially email in. That way we kind of know what's coming a little bit, and we can just manage the meeting a little bit better. I mean, you certainly can take, after that, if you wanted to take any random calls that came in, you could, but if they gave me if they provided comments ahead of time, I could at least let you know what's coming a little bit. We can know who's talking and how many people we're expecting, things like that. Because it is really hard to have a big meeting in a forum like this.
Can you set a time limit on presentation, each individual? I mean, I've been to other meetings where they've set time limits.
You can, and I would just also suggest that when we have the meeting that, if people have comments that are repetitive of somebody else's, that they either just, if they want to echo it, they just come on and say, we echo what so-and-so said, but not rehash things.
You think 2 minutes, like a presidential debate?
Yeah.
No, I was with the one at the Bridges about a year ago. I think they limited it to like 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. It's usually about 5 minutes.
I would keep in mind the two previous hearings. We certainly had less than 10 people commenting. I'm going to guess it was 6 people maybe each time. So, it wasn't large turnouts, and it could change a little. I don't expect this to be like dogs at conservation area.
Please no.
Yes, I don't think it's gonna be one of those. So, okay. Well, then I think it's good. And you want to start at 6?
I'll check with our schedule and with Channel 18, but yes, I would like to start at 6.
Okay.
If you do.
Yep. If we have a lot of time on the 21st, is there something that we want to take up? I've been wanting to revisit the dock and pier regulations, but I've been kind of waiting until the Bell's Neck Bog issue can be resolved. Is there something we want to, if we truly have a light agenda, we want to consider something to discuss?
We can. I think I'm going to need all the extra time I have to get ready the Bell's Neck plan. But
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I'll try to put any small business that does come up, like some of the stuff we had tonight is really small type stuff. I will try to cram as much of that on to the 21st and then the meeting after the 4th as I can.
Yep, that'd be great. Okay. And I would encourage everyone to review, Amy's edits on what we have so far in Dropbox, just so that the commission members can be, kind of clear on how they feel coming into that. All right.
And I mean, we're going to want to, I'm going to be releasing, that's a public document. And I think it's only fair that, people who are interested in the meeting get those draft, and it'll be very clear that it's draft, or changes proposed options. But just keep in mind that those are going to be made public. So.
Yep. Do we want to review that and kind of approve the release on the 21st?
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And then, yeah, and if you can work on the overall plan after that, great. But at least for the specific bog management piece,
yeah,
we'll have that language ready to go on the 21st. Okay. I think that's a good plan.
We got 2 sets of minutes and we're done.
All right. Any other new business people want to bring up while we're looking at the minutes?
I sent you an email earlier today about a violation off Azalea Drive. More to come.
Oh boy, they keep you busy, Amy.
It's never boring.
Are we having a session after this, Amy?
Oh,
Oh, I forgot.
I forgot. There's no action you need to take. We can put that on the 21st if you want to talk about anything. I did send you the documents. Just have to say, hooray! There's some good things that came out of that. We don't have to do that tonight.
All right. Well, congratulations, Amy. You've worked a ton on this, and it goes back a long ways.
To everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not completely done. There's still other opportunities for appeal, but we're real close, and we had a very good finding. So.
Any idea if he's going to appeal?
We're not in session.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, I think we wait because there's so much history. We're going to talk about that for 20 minutes or half an hour.
Yeah.
So I think we save that for next time.
Well, and actually by that time, if there is something else to come in, we might have it.
Yeah.
So, all right. You got minutes from September 2nd, and I just quickly finished ones from September 16th today. If you had a chance, I don't know.
So one typo on the September 2nd.
Let me just open it up.
A missing word or something.
Okay, where is it?
It's page 7, the first paragraph that starts on page 7, just the first sentence stands so cow to how pleased he is. Stan Selkow said how pleased he and his neighbors are or something.
Yeah.
It's the wording.
Said how pleased, yeah.
I have nothing else on September 2nd.
I'm good with September 2nd as well.
Yeah.
I've got a minute correction. In the under Thomas McCabe, Lynn Hamlin is representing, and all the rest of it was Amy Usowski reiterated. So it should be Lynn Hamlin represented the owners. Put it in past tense to equal your past tense.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
And again in the next one.
Presented, yeah. Yeah, I'll just mention to Melissa that it should be past tense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's mine. Okay.
And the administrative review explains. Yeah, past tense is better, I think.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on September 2nd?
No, I'm good on that one. How
How
folks
about
on the 16th?
Yeah, how about September 16th?
No comments. Looks good.
Same
Yeah,
here.
no comments on 16.
I kept it brief.
I think there's a typo. We ended the meeting at 8:20 p.m.
Right? I know.
Oh, that was a great night.
So I'm going to move to approve the minutes for September 2nd and September 16th.
I'm going to say thank you and second that. And then we'll do a roll call on both, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Ernie?
Aye.
And I, Brad. So that concludes, I think, our business for tonight. Anything else that folks want to bring up, or? All right. Well, thank you all, and I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. So I guess we got this roll call going on from now on. So.
I know.
Sorry, you guys gonna hate my voice at some point. Jim.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Stan.
Aye.
Ernie.
Aye.
Myself, Brad. Aye. All right, we're adjourned.